All right, it's 5:30. We'll call to order this meeting. It's a regular meeting of Finance, Organization, and Personnel. Meeting is being broadcast live on the City of Keene YouTube channel and channel 1302. The video is also streamed on the city's website and is posted on the website by the end of the next business day, barring any technical difficulties. Copies of the printed agenda are available in the wall pockets just as you enter this meeting room. The public and other city councilors will be recognized to ask questions and make comments on the agenda item under discussion. After being recognized, all remarks are to be made through the chair. I will not recognize an individual a second time until everyone who wishes has had an opportunity to speak. Anyone who wishes to address the committee is asked to go to one of the microphones in the room and identify themselves by name and address prior to speaking. And written comments from the public will be accepted at the city clerk's office until Tuesday at 1 p.m. Our minute taker participates remotely, so please remember to turn your microphones on and speak loud enough for everyone to be heard. Should we not do that, we will hear a voice from above that will tell us to straighten out. We're starting a little early this evening because we're going to handle the rest of our CIP program, but we will do the regular business of finance first. There's a few items on the agenda. So item number 1, Mr. Bohannon? Aren't you? Oh, airport, okay.
No. Yeah, you were right here.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. Well, number 1 of the others.
But you were right.
Yeah.
It is Andy.
So,
I thought we were doing the CIP first.
okay.
The special request. This is, and I didn't bring my notes, sorry. So this is for, we had back in December, had applied for an LWCF grant, which we were notified that we were moving forward in the process. And in that note back in December, I just noted that we needed to allocate a funding source for that, and this is taking care of that process. So there's remaining funds in the Russell Park in transferring that amount, $75,000, over to the skate park project, which allow us to have that match for this project. What this will do, this project is for the parking lot and the pathway that would connect the parking lot on the west side of the property to the parking lot on Russell Park. This is part of the original design that we had to eliminate just because we had to remove the findings building when that all happened. So this otherwise would have been built originally, but they were gracious enough to give us an extension on that LWCF. So,
Questions? Members of the committee?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I have not seen that site plan. Will there be adequate shade? I know we cannot have shade trees near the actual skate park itself, but all of these parking lots are going to be getting increasingly hot as our weather patterns continue to change. Will there be the opportunity to provide shade within the parking lot itself and around its edges?
around its edges, certainly, yes.
Okay, all
Yep.
right, thank you.
Anybody else here? Anybody from the public? All right, motion's yours.
Move that the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee recommend that the City Council reallocate $75,000 from the Patricia Russell Park Construction 6570006B to the Skate Park Improvements Project 65J0008A.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Further discussion? Committee members? Seeing none, all in favor? I suppose that's unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Aaron?
Good evening, Aaron Costa, Assistant Public Works Director, Manager of the Wastewater Treatment Plant, and
Ben Crowder, Water and Sewer Operations Manager.
oh, sorry. So we're here tonight to ask that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and execute a local source water protection grant from New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services in the amount of $39,500. The city has taken advantage of this particular grant in the past to install fencing around Babbage Reservoir and to do property surveys around the well fields. So $25,000 of this grant will be used to install about 1,000 linear feet of 8-foot high security fencing around city-owned land, around the sanitary protective radius at the West Street Well Facility, and $14,500 will be to install a security fence and a gate up at Babbage Reservoir. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Questions here? Public? In that case.
Move to recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept and execute a local source water protection grant from the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services in the amount of $39,500.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Further discussion here? Okay, so all in favor? No one's opposed, unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the next item is for the donation.
Yes. Carrie Chamberlain, Finance Director. Deputy City Manager Andrew Bohannon mentioned the other evening that we were fortunate enough to receive a donation from a company which was closing its doors in Bedford, New Hampshire. The company was Guild Mortgage Company, and they donated an incredible amount of office furniture. The estimated value currently is about $78,000 worth. And they actually picked up some additional pieces today that I think that the total value overall would be up to about $100,000 worth of cubicles, desks, conference tables, chairs, and that made a significant impact, especially with the facilities project that was discussed, the finance reconfiguration. The cubicles that we have up there are very, very old. So we're feel very fortunate that, we were able to connect with this company. Our purchasing department did a great job in working with the company to make sure that those were available for us. So we're asking for the donation of the office supplies and furniture to be accepted.
Yes, ma'am.
Will this office furniture, we had understood that one of the reasons for reconfiguring your particular department is noise, that it doesn't, right now, it's not functioning very well in terms of having distinct, separate conversations. Will this equipment help with that? Will this get you to your goal?
It's actually for two separate areas. So that project itself was both for the finance department, the accounting function on the third floor, as well as the revenue collection office on the first floor.
Okay.
Revenue collection is where we're seeing the issue with the noise.
Okay.
But certainly, these cubicles are taller than what we currently have upstairs, and I think it gives a little more privacy. So certainly with phone calls that are being made during the day, I think that it should cut down on the noise overall in the office.
Terrific. Glad to hear it. Thank you.
We're so fortunate to have generous people. Oh, my goodness. Move that the Finance, Organization, and Personnel Committee recommend that the city manager be authorized to do all things necessary to accept the donation of office furniture and equipment from Guild Mortgage Company with an estimated value of up to $100,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, committee? If not, all in favor? No one's opposed, it's unanimous. Thank you. Nice job. All right,
Good evening, Mr. Chair.
how are you?
Are we ready to talk about CIP?
Maybe.
I know I am.
Oh, boy.
Very excited. While the rest of the team prepares themselves mentally and physically for the adventure we're about to embark on, I'm going to do something a little uncharacteristic. I'm going to read some remarks that I prepared for tonight. Tonight you will hear from a very talented team of infrastructure professionals as they present our proposed FY27 to to FY33 Capital Improvement Program. We'll be reviewing the Public Works General Fund as well as parking, solid waste, water sewer, and equipment funds. Collectively, these programs represent an infrastructure investment of over $66 million in the next 2 years. Before getting into the individual projects, I want to highlight a few broader themes that shaped the CIP. The first one I want to talk about is cost escalation. Obviously, this is no surprise to anyone. We've had conversations about construction costs going up. But as an example, during the most recent biennial update of the state's 10-year transportation improvement plan, the New Hampshire DOT cut 34 previously approved transportation projects from the state plan. Not only did they not add projects in those future years, they actually cut 34 from the plan that was approved 2 years ago. In addition, they indefinitely delayed 15 other construction projects across the state because of escalating costs that are outpacing the state's revenue. The implication for municipalities like Keene are straightforward. Projects cost more than they did even just a few years ago. Delaying projects makes them more expensive, and proactive asset management becomes increasingly important to avoid larger replacement later on. You will see this reflected in the CIP. Many of the proposed investments focus on preservation, rehabilitation, and service life extension, rather than waiting until assets fail and require a full replacement. The second sort of big theme I want to talk about is the increasing regulatory and environmental requirements. Next year, we'll be up for renewal of our wastewater discharge permit. Although Aaron and his team do a remarkable job of treating our wastewater to a very high purity, ever more stringent regulations mean the next permit could require us to make major investments in the treatment technology in order to meet those new tighter requirements. Essentially, we are operating at the peak of that plant's performance, the peak of what we can do with that plant. And if the requirements keep getting tighter and tighter, the plant's going to need additional equipment and processes to meet those. Similarly, the drinking water standards and testing requirements only get more stringent over time. Tonight, you will hear about one new project intended to protect our water supply from future contamination, and several projects designed to ensure that we are providing the highest quality drinking water possible. Next theme will be alignment with council goals and the comprehensive master plan. Obviously, most of the projects you'll hear about are directly addressing your goal for strategic infrastructure investment and asset management. However, many of the projects cut across multiple of the council goals and master plan pillars. For example, projects like the downtown infrastructure reconstruction, Lower Winchester Street, and the West Street corridor upgrades support master plan goal of maintaining a thriving local economy and connected mobility networks. The Black Brook Pump Station project will advance environmental sustainability and resilience by preventing sanitary sewer overflows and encouraging diverse housing options by providing capacity to support future redevelopment and housing growth within that surrounding area. And then finally is long-term financial stewardship. Like CIPs in the years past, this CIP reflects the city's longstanding commitment to financial planning and asset management. Across the 7-year program, we use a mix of capital reserves, grants, bonds, and enterprise funds. This approach helps spread the costs of these major investments over time, and it allows us to smooth out the ebbs and flows of spending, avoiding those sudden impacts to operating expenses, tax rate impacts, or sudden changes to the utility rates. My staff and I look forward to discussing the individual projects with you this evening and answering any questions you may have. With that, I would like to turn it over to Brian. I'll turn it over to Brian Ruoff, and we will begin our review on page 86 of your book. I skipped right over you. I was so excited. All right, all of that, pause that. I'm sorry.
Do you have an opening speech for me?
And now I would like to introduce our new airport director.
And he's on page 76.
Why didn't you stop me?
You'll always see this evening.
Good evening, everyone. Ryan Cooley, Airport Director. I first just want to say that I'm extremely happy to be here, so I just want to get that out of the way. All right, so before I get into the specific projects, I would like to briefly talk about how airport projects are funded, because it plays a big role in how we build our capital improvement program and our airport capital improvement program. Keene Dillon Hopkins Airport is included in what is called the National Plan of Integrated Airport Systems, or those of us in the aviation field, the NIPIAS. This is a federal program that identifies airports that are considered important to the national aviation system. Airports that are part of the NIPIAS are eligible to receive federal airport improvement program funding from the FAA. Because the Keene Dillon Hopkins Airport is part of that system, we are eligible for federal funding that typically covers about 90% of eligible airport projects. The state of New Hampshire usually contributes another 5%, which leaves about 5% as the local share. When we develop the airport CIP, we try to align our projects with that program whenever possible so we can maximize federal and state participation and minimize the impact on the city's budget. Right now, as a general aviation airport, Keene receives about $150,000 per year in FAA entitlement funding that can be used towards eligible airport projects. Larger projects, such as runway or taxiway reconstruction projects, which are usually running in the millions of dollars, typically depend on additional FAA discretionary funding becoming available. If the discretionary funding is not available, those projects will not happen because we just simply don't have enough entitlement funds for it. To put that into perspective, we get $150,000 per year from the FAA for our entitlement funds as a GA airport. We can hold on to those funds for 3 years. That equals up to about $450,000 that we can save up for and then use. We can't save up for $4 or $5 million, so it's use it or lose it within that 3-year period.
So they're ready to go? Thank you.
So one thing that is important to understand is that airport funding levels are tied to airport classifications and passenger activity. And under federal law updated in 2024, airports with scheduled commercial service receive significantly higher annual entitlement funding based on the number of passengers boarding a flight. For example, about 5,000 annual passengers at a small non-hub commercial service airport could generate roughly $500,000 per year in entitlement funding, and higher passenger levels could increase that amount even further. So while tonight's discussion focuses on maintaining the airport's existing infrastructure, restoring commercial air service in the future could significantly strengthen the airport's ability to fund larger infrastructure improvements with less impact on the city's general budget as a whole. So, with that in mind, I will walk through the airport projects planned for the next 2 fiscal years. These projects focus primarily on safety, infrastructure preservation, and maintaining the airport as a reliable transportation asset for the Monadnock region. They also align with the Vision Keene 20 Forward Comprehensive Master Plan and several city council goals related to public safety, infrastructure stewardship, and economic vitality. So the first project I'm going to talk about is the Wildlife Perimeter Fence. This project installs approximately 17,000 feet of wildlife perimeter fencing to reduce wildlife incursions at our airport. This will improve aviation safety significantly. Currently, there are areas of the airport where wildlife can access the runway environment from surrounding wetlands and wooded areas. Wildlife on the runway creates a safety risk for aircraft operations, both for pilots and passengers, and it can also be dangerous for the wildlife itself. The project supports City Council goals related to public safety and responsible infrastructure management by reducing the risk of wildlife strikes involving aircraft. It also supports the comprehensive master plan pillars of connected mobility and thriving economy by ensuring safe and reliable aviation access for our region. One positive development with this project is that through conversations with the state and the FAA, and by emphasizing how important airport safety and security are, not only for aviation, but for protecting wildlife and pedestrians who use the areas around the airport, we were able to advocate strongly for additional support. Thanks to state appropriations and discussions about discretionary funding opportunities, we were able to make the case that completing the perimeter fence sooner in one phase rather than over a lengthy period of time was important from a safety standpoint. As a result, there has been strong support for advancing construction of the full project rather than continuing to complete the fence in multiple smaller phases over several years. Next, I have snow removal equipment replacement. This project replaces one of the airport's snow removal carrier vehicles, which is used to operate runway plows, brooms, and other snow removal equipment during winter operations. The airport currently has 4 carrier vehicles. However, the FAA only recognizes 2 of those as being eligible per their equipment standards. For the FAA to fund replacement vehicles, we must first reduce our fleet down to the FAA allowable number. What that means in practice is that we would need to surplus the 2 oldest carrier vehicles. Once those are removed from the fleet, we can apply for the FAA grant for replacement equipment. If the grant is awarded, the next step is to accept the grant and replace the 3rd oldest vehicle with a new carrier vehicle. Once that new vehicle is delivered, the 3rd oldest vehicle would be then surplused, and because the equipment was purchased with FAA grant funding, the airport must receive FAA approval before surplusing any equipment. The FAA verifies that the equipment has reached the end of its useful life and ensures the federal investment is protected. And then, if the equipment is sold, any proceeds must remain airport revenue and be used for airport purposes. This process ensures the airport remains compliant with FAA equipment standards while still allowing us to modernize our snow removal fleet. Maintaining reliable snow removal equipment is critical in New England because it allows the airport to remain operational during winter weather and supports emergency services, business aviation, and regional transportation access. This project supports City Council priorities related to public safety and reliable infrastructure, while also supporting the comprehensive master plan pillars of connected mobility and thriving economy. The next project is pavement maintenance and marking. This project restores critical airfield pavement markings to maintain federal compliance and improve pilot situational awareness. Maintaining these markings is part of the airport's ongoing responsibility to preserve infrastructure that was largely funded through federal programs. Preventative maintenance protects the city's investment in airport infrastructure and aligns with council goals related to responsible asset management. From a comprehensive master plan standpoint, the project supports the connected mobility pillar by maintaining safe and efficient transportation infrastructure. Routine maintenance like this also helps reduce long-term infrastructure costs and ensures the airport continues operating safely and reliably. And then throughout fiscal years 27 and 28, the next project is airport obstruction management. This project focuses on identifying and removing obstructions that penetrate protected airspace surfaces surrounding the airport. In most cases, these obstructions are trees that have grown over time into the protected airspace that aircraft rely on when approaching or departing the airport. Some of these trees, unfortunately, have grown over time and are located on airport property, and some of them are located on privately owned land outside the airport boundary. This is very common for airports across the country and is not unique to our own. The FAA does not have the authority to remove trees on private property. Instead, the FAA requires airports to identify obstructions and work with the property owners to address them. In most cases, the process involves working cooperatively with landowners to obtain permission on easements that allows the airport to trim or remove trees that have grown into the protected airspace. And airports typically try to approach this collaboratively and explain the safety importance of maintaining obstruction-free airspace on properties all around the airport, airport-owned or not. In many situations, landowners are willing to cooperate once they understand that the work is related to aviation safety. In cases where trees cannot be removed immediately, the FAA may require operational adjustments, such as changes to approach minimum standards, until the obstruction is addressed. Our goal is always to work with the property owners in a cooperative and respectful way so we can maintain safe airspace while maintaining positive relationships with the surrounding community. The project supports City Council goals related to public safety and infrastructure protection. It also aligns with the comprehensive master plan pillars of flourishing environment and connected mobility by placing responsible land management with safe transportation access. Preserving these protected airspace areas ensures the airport can continue operating safely while supporting regional transportation and economic activity. So, taken together, these airport projects support the city's long-term strategic direction by improving safety, maintaining critical infrastructure, leveraging federal funding, and strengthening regional transportation connectivity. They advance the comprehensive master plan pillars of connected mobility, thriving economy, and flourishing environment. And they also support the City Council goals, including public safety, responsible infrastructure management, fiscal stewardship, and maintaining Keene's role as a regional economic and transportation hub. So over the next 2 fiscal years, we are really focused on the fundamentals: improving safety, maintaining the infrastructure we already have, leveraging federal and state funding wherever possible, and ensuring the airport continues supporting the city's long-term vision and council priorities. So that concludes the airport portion of the capital improvement program, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Questions here? Yes, sir.
You had talked about, you got to hear from 2016 to 2018, the airport was addressing a number of the obstacles with the trees along there. And I remember in that time frame, 2016 and even early to 2018, it was a quite contentious moment, well, a long period of time. Do you think it's going to be much more favorable this time, or you have any feeling one way or the other?
So I can't speak to 2016, 2017, or 2018. I know it's contentious everywhere. I have not been involved at an airport where if you go to a private property owner and tell them you need to remove their beautiful tree that's been on their property for generations, that they're just going to willingly say, oh, no problem. Sometimes you do, and then sometimes you have to have those conversations about aviation safety and security, come up with solutions. Easements are one way to approach that hurdle, if you will. But ultimately, it all comes down to how you have that conversation, how you're transparent with why you're doing it, and hopefully come to an agreement some way or another, whether you're able to cut the tree down completely, or maybe you trim it at the top, trim it halfway down, come to a compromise if you need to. But it all comes down to that communication piece and building that partnership, with your neighbor. Because yeah, we're an airport, but they're our neighbors. We're their neighbor, and we just want what's best for everybody. And I'm sure at the end of the day, there isn't anybody out there who wants to have a Cessna coming in or an aircraft hit the top of a tree and have something horrific happen. So.
That's a good description. I'm sure are you sure you weren't here in 2016? And 2017? But I do recall towards the end of that time frame, we had turnover in when Ed Mattern left, and then we had myself, and then we had another gentleman there, and then we had Dave, and now we've got Ryan. And it was hard to maintain that relationship with the community. However, we did reach a point where we were talking about how to replace those trees, not just remove them. And also, I don't know if red pine scale is going to enter the equation, but it might be a help. At this point in time, a lot of those trees are susceptible.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome aboard. Glad to have you here. So I recall us over the winter having to do some of the line marking in the middle of essentially a couple different storms. I know that was a bit difficult, if I remember correctly. Does the repaving that we have here planned for FY27 include redoing any of that, or did all of that survive all of the storms that we had to deal with?
So I'm going to try to answer this as perfectly educated as possible. I believe what you're referring to is the taxiway project that was being constructed that was being worked on right before like Thanksgiving, and then the big storm came. Yes, so that's separate. So the pavement marking, the finishing of the rehabilitation of taxiway Alpha, taxiway Tango, and some of the connectors is still going to be taking place later on this spring. What this is going to tackle is airport maintenance on airport surfaces like taxiways, aprons, and runways. That hasn't been done since the initial pavement was laid, 10, 12, 15 years ago. So we're at the middle of their expected life expectancy, and so the rehabilitation of these critical infrastructure pieces will happen about once every 3 years with pavement marking refreshes. That's required by the FAA, seal coat to protect the pavement from FOD and further damage, and crack sealing to ensure that these wonderful New England winter weather events don't make those cracks turn into the Grand Canyon.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? Members of the public? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chair, I do have a question about the 4 points.
On what?
The 4 points. Public Works Director.
All right. Go ahead.
Now let's talk about Public Works.
I'm sorry, Mr. Public Works, excuse me, Public Works Director. You gave an incredible amount of weight to number 2, increase in regulatory and environmental requirements regarding our wastewater treatment plant. I'd just like to clarify for the public, when you talk about tighter standards and the requisite major investment necessary in order to meet those, we are talking about public safety and public health in terms of our water quality, correct?
That's right.
Okay. I know sometimes we get very concerned about tighter requirements, but it is for the benefit of our entire public, so that people don't really have to go buy bottled water. We have fabulous water here.
Yeah, we have tremendous natural water supplies, and we're very lucky that our forebears had the foresight to protect most of the watershed in Roxbury. So we have very good quality drinking water to begin with, but there are substances that are getting more regulatory scrutiny. I'm sure you've heard of these forever chemicals, PFAS, PFOS, that family of chemicals that are getting more concern and more scrutiny. Those are sort of what we call emerging contaminants that we're really just starting to understand.
So those tighter requirements that we will be making will give us the ability to make sure that we're able to notice immediately or as quickly as possible if we start having problems with those contaminants.
Yeah, I would say as soon as the science helps us understand what the consequences are. But yeah, the goal here is we're not Detroit.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Engineer.
For the record, Brian Ruff, City Engineer. Happy to speak to you about Public Works projects today. If you're following along in your book,
84 is where he's starting.
86, starting on 86, project 86. So this was in the previous CIP. This is for the Beaver Brook Flood Mitigation Project, Stormwater Resiliency Project. The change that we did make in this CIP update is we pushed the funding, or the projected funding out 1 year beyond this next 2 years. And there's a couple of reasons for that. One is we don't have the engineering in place to know what that construction is going to be. And two, there were some delays with the release of the FEMA flood maps to know what the most beneficial areas to target would be. So in light of those two things, we're requesting the same allocation of funds. They're just pushed out 1 year. Does that make sense? Okay. The next project is the Bridge Rehabilitation and Replacement Program. This has changed a little bit since the last CIP based on some reshuffling of bridge priorities and a cost that we've seen from bidding the George Street project. Cost of steel has gone up significantly since the last CIP update. That's reflected in the anticipated costs for these bridges. The the Winchester Street over the Ash Swamp Brook is not included as part of this program. That's separate as part of the Lower Winchester Street project. So just to clarify that, the biggest difference is where Maple Ave was previously programmed in the DOT State Municipal Bridge Aid Program. We're requesting to replace that bridge with the Beaver Street Bridge over Beaver Brook to expedite the replacement of that in light of the 10-ton posting limit we were required to post as part of the recent load rating studies. So essentially swapping those two bridges and using the DOT funding for that Beaver Street over Beaver Brook project. We're also having in discussions with DOT about potentially, because the Lower Winchester Street project funding by DOT was pushed out, in moving that bridge replacement as part of that project up to be able to do that as its own project to replace the bridge and eliminate that load rating on that bridge as well. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions, or I could move on to the next item.
Questions?
The next program,
Go.
sorry, go ahead.
Go.
I apologize.
You had discussed earlier about how the state is pushing back or canceling projects. Okay, while these projects they're out a little bit, but they're still important. But what do you think, are they really at risk, or do you feel comfortable that the state will come up and do its share in this reasonable amount of time?
Yeah, so I should have mentioned, I'm not trying to be too critical of the state and, the actions that they had to take, because the good news, I guess, is that despite the fact that they had to make some pretty significant cuts, none of the city's 10-year plan projects were on the chopping block. Some of our projects were pushed back. But we didn't have any construction funds that was canceled, and we didn't have any projects cut outright. So from that perspective, I'd say we fared better than a lot of communities. That said, the 10-year plan is updated every 2 years. I don't know what the next 2 years will bring. I know that the state is keenly aware of the revenue concerns, and they're looking at options like increasing toll taxes. Every couple of years I go to the public meetings related to the 10-year plan, and last one I did my best to advocate that the state really needs to fix its revenue model. The gas tax hasn't seen a appreciable increase in New Hampshire since I want to say it was 2014. You might have noticed that things cost more than they did in 2014.
Slightly.
So it's something that really needs to be addressed at the state level. I would advocate that it should be indexed to inflation. But right now, that's where we are. No delays yet, but who knows?
Okay, thank you.
Beaver Street Bridge, I'm just noticing 2033. We had an incident very recently, this particular bridge is in my neighborhood, where a semi decided to go down Beaver Street all the way up to North Lincoln, took out trees, whatever. And my understanding was that you had an excellent suggestion to come up with a sign so that semis don't do that anymore, that could help keep them from doing that. Would that sign, given the condition of the Beaver Street Bridge, be at the Washington Street in order to prevent that?
Yeah, that's what we're proposing, and that's completely within my authority. The sign maker is fabricating the sign. He was working on it today, so that you'll see that in the next day or two.
That's great.
Maybe not tomorrow, but early next week.
Very concerning.
Yeah.
Thank you. The next project program sort of ties in with the previous one. This is more of a preservation program. It's essentially a setting money aside to make sure that the new bridges that we are planning on installing, are maintained in a good condition and don't require major upgrades or improvements. Some of these, the specific scope for the funding allocation isn't necessarily defined, but it's built into the CIP in 2031 for the project. The next program project is the dam maintenance program. The city has done a lot of work in the last 10 years to bring our dams up to DES standards, and essentially these allocated amounts are unchanged from the previous CIP and allow us to perform the necessary maintenance to keep from having to do large-scale million-dollar projects on these dam rehabs. So the next project is a downtown improvements project. This is the first page is a general summary of costs. This was discussed at the previous MSFI and City Council meeting, the changes to the budgets and the where the money is coming from. The water and sewer fund allocations are essentially unchanged, and we'll talk about that as part of the water and sewer funds. The traffic signal replacements, we're allocating additional funds this year based on the bids that we received and the existing cost for traffic signals that we've observed in the current bidding climate. Also, there's a footnote on the page under the notes. The fiscal year 27 allocated funds includes the fiscal year 27 road rehab project. So essentially taking those planned funds and using them for the paving of the downtown project. I'd be happy to answer any questions on the downtown project or.
Questions? From the public? Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't know that the mic's ever been on this side, at least since I've been on council, so it feels a little bit here. Jacob Favalise, Main Street, Ward 1 Councilor.
Is it on?
I have a question from a constituent who was not able to be here tonight due to a prior commitment, and it's a general question. I wonder if the Public Works Director or the City Engineer could speak a little bit to the debt funding load for the downtown project and how that might have factored into decisions about overall CIP spend. So I guess the interplay between the way that we're funding this project and then maybe what some of the other asks in the Public Works part of the CIP are.
So for the downtown project, we have shifted funding to what's called our fund balance, so our unassigned fund balance, to minimize the amount of impact related to debt or to just to general taxation. So in your packet, you'll see a summary of the projects by funding source. It's on page 11 in your book. And you'll see in fund balance, use of fund balance is for the downtown roadway preservation project, or it was the roadway preservation rehabilitation program. It's now being allocated for the downtown project. That's 1.4, just over 1.4 million. There's also some money there for traffic signal replacement. That was an increase, so we're using more than we typically do. We usually, as part of the capital plan, we usually use just about over $1 million, maybe $1.5 million. We're using $3.1 million in that first year, so we shifted quite a bit to minimize impact of the downtown project and also minimize debt, because if you look on page 12, we have a high debt load coming in this year in the first year. And that is partially it's from the downtown project. It's also from the Robin Hood project and then there's some other projects in there as well. And so in order to balance the capital plan, we did shift more to fund balance.
Thank you. Does that help?
Thank you.
Okay. Right.
I would like to say on a positive note, the Stantec completed the rescoping of the contract documents. They've been reviewed and approved by DES as of this evening, right before this meeting. We'll be receiving the official authorization to rebid the project, and we will be going out to rebid this project early next week. We have reached out to contractors capable of performing the work, and we are excited to receive bids for the project.
We're all crossing our fingers.
The next project was actually in the last CIP, but didn't end up having funding allocated for it. It had previously funding planned allocated for fiscal year '27, but for some reason it was cut. I'm not sure of the specifics. So it's being added in as fiscal year '28, the downtown restroom project. This will be dovetailed with the Gilbo Ave Solar Pavilion project in the same general footprint. It will be designed so that there's a space within this building to house the electrical equipment for the Gilbo Ave Solar Pavilion. So a lot of benefits with this project that we look to implement as part of the Gilbo Ave improvements.
Questions? It's your favorite project?
It's my, yeah. Yes, we've been talking about it for a while. Yeah, so this is a project that the council has had in the CIP for a number of years, and it has moved up. It's made its way to year of implementation now. It started out, several years away, and with the work that we're doing in the downtown, and we have cut back in terms of the work that we're doing on Gilbo, we committed to bringing forward this downtown restroom project, but I do have concerns. We have had public bathrooms in the downtown in the past that have been vandalized, and we've tried a variety of techniques in terms of where the bathroom was being located, how the bathrooms were being secured, and we just didn't have a lot of luck. So we were very hesitant to bring back a bathroom. But we have done so, and that is because we had heard from the council that this is something that you wanted us to include. And by doing so, we've included the most, the hardiest of materials for this bathroom to try to make it last as long as possible and also make it less susceptible to vandalism and misuse. But that does mean it's expensive. And so you will see on page 94 of the capital plan, it is just over $440,000. And so I highlight that because it is a big project and a big decision. And, if you include this project in your CIP in this year, it will move forward and as part of the operating budget that's going to be beginning in the next few weeks at the staff level.
I would like to commend the fact that this is pulling forward. I'm not saying that it's not difficult to have a public bathroom in a community like those across the nation that are having challenges with their public, right? But the fact of allowing a place where a regular human being or an unhoused human being can go potty with a measure of self-respect and not be hiding every morning, every afternoon. If you can imagine that yourself personally, I believe that this is a bare minimum for addressing the needs of our public. In addition to our regular public during public events, we had the example, I have a constituent who said, I have a dog that I bring downtown for my events. I cannot bring that dog into a restroom, into a restaurant, because they are presentable enough to go into a restaurant and ask to use their facilities. So people with special needs, a child that needs medicine, whatever. I know this is a difficult investment, but I believe it's important for a respectful community to respect its citizens and allow for places for them to go to the bathroom without fear or shame.
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jacob Favalis, Main Street, Ward 1 Councilor. Conscious of the number of councilors in the room tonight, so I'll just ask a question. I understand that there was shuffling around, I think we heard it earlier tonight, shuffling around of the funding for road rehabilitation projects in order to offset some of the cost of the downtown project. I wonder how many feet of roads $442,000 could pave.
Yes, ma'am.
So I misspoke earlier, it's in fiscal '28, so if it remains in that location, it will be in your following operating budget, not the one we're working on now, it'll be in fiscal '28.
Are you talking about the roadway or?
Oh, no,
bathroom?
I'm talking about the timing of the project, yeah, on page 94.
Notwithstanding, how much of, what,
So I was just going to say a lot. Brian is feverishly using his calculator right now to come up with a linear foot, I think, to answer the counselor's question. But, you know, just in terms of comparison to our annual program, our annual paving is between 1.2 and 1.4 million dollars. So this is like a third of what we do every summer. It's a lot of paving.
you had a question?
Yeah, so currently for public bathrooms, we have whatever's in the city hall and in the library, which is open at least on Saturdays for part of the day. Are those the only ones that we have available for public?
In the downtown area, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did we look at, I mean, it's a hefty price tag. And I noticed in the reading of it, it says it's going to be around $12,000 a year to maintain.
Mhm.
How foolproof
Foolproof
is
is
this?
this.
Because in the last one, we had like the sink was torn off the wall.
Right.
There was
Yes.
always needles.
Yeah.
There were houseless people who sometimes locked themselves in, so they had a place to stay at night. We had a lot of problems with it.
Right.
And a lot of damage, and it just kept costing us and then recosting us and recosting us. So how is this one gonna be different?
Yeah, I'm going to let the Public Works talk about that because they did quite a bit of research in terms of options and came up with one that they feel is most able to stand up to misuse.
And it is a eye-popping price tag on it. But the reason that it is so expensive is because of exactly what you're describing. We're proposing this particular unit that's manufactured specifically for this type of use. They are self-cleaning, so every 10th user, the system will lock itself for 30 seconds and it goes through a cleaning cycle. That cleaning cycle includes washing any debris off the floor, so objects like needles get flushed into a trough where the public isn't able to touch them or access them. Everything is built out, it's basically like a concrete structure with cladding, so it doesn't look like, ugly like concrete, but it is pretty durable materials. The mirror, for example, is a sheet of stainless steel. It's really built very ruggedly, and it is designed to be tamper-proof. That said, given enough time and motivation, anything can be damaged, right? To the other point you made about individuals sort of camping in it, the unit actually has a occupancy sensor. So if somebody is in it for more than 20 minutes, it will send out a notification. We can program that notification to go to Keene PD or Parks and Rec or whoever would be, selected to respond to that situation. The self-cleaning cycle will not initiate if there's somebody in the facility. So they thought through all of these little details. But like I said, anything given enough time can be damaged.
So when Pat Russell Park was created, we installed public bathrooms there, and we had problems immediately. Are those still open 20, well, I don't know what's the hours that they're open? No lock?
That unit actually has a time lock on it, so it is set to unlock during park opening hours, which is dawn to dusk. I don't know of any issues that they've had with it or have had since. As far as I know, that's still in service.
Yeah, I would say that that's accurate. I have heard of some vandalism, but I don't know the extent. That would be a good question for Parks and Rec.
Oh, thank you.
The answer is,
For how many feet? It's about 2 miles, roughly, with the program we do, and that's not full depth reconstruction. We mill about 1.5 inches, put 1.5 inches back. So I'd say it's short of that number with mobilization overhead costs. I looked at it as an asphalt cost, but it's a decent amount of paving for sure. Yeah, yeah.
Counselor Tobin?
Thank you. This is for tall people, isn't it? Okay, here we go. I do like the idea of having restrooms downtown. I also wonder if this is the best option, in part because having worked at a manufacturer who made indestructible things, they do break and the replacement parts are pretty pricey. One question I do have is, would this be open year-round or only during like summer months?
The facility is designed for year-round use. The plumbing fixtures, the interior space is heated, so it can be left in service all year.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I've got a couple of questions around, and we're about to leave roadways and get into water and projects. So
We've only just begun.
you have only been, but I think the engineer is about to exit as soon as he can. The amount of money that is going to go towards roadway improvements, a general allocation without specifics to it, but we know that this year has been brutal. There are a lot of roads needing repair. So I want to understand the 1 point on page 11, you pointed out $1.4 million is an allocation. The Public Works Director indicated 1.2 to 1.4 is essentially a dollar amount that's generally carried. So I want to know, beyond downtown, how much is going to be available for roadway improvements?
I don't know what page it's on, but I did see a summary sheet that talks about projects, but there's the allocation, the 1.4 that's identified is the amount of money that would be used for the road projects that we would do throughout the city for one season. So that is being moved to the downtown project to help offset debt or tax impacts related from the increase in cost of the project.
Right.
But there's still several projects. We're not done going through them.
Yeah, so the road rehab program is actually in about 3 or 4 projects down deeper into the book, beginning on page 100, and we'll get into more specifics there.
I think I can hold off with one exception. Then I'll wait for you to cover that part of the. You're going to cover that part.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. The other question I wanted to just refresh my recall. As I recall, the downtown project, the contingency budget is in the downtown project is at 0 at this point. So the 24 million that we've got allocated is anticipated for total project expense, but there's no 2% or 3% project contingency that's carried below that line. Is that correct?
The amount that we have in the project right now is pretty close to equal to what we're expecting for bids. There's not much in the way of fluff.
Or contingency?
Yeah.
Yeah, so now that's my recall of that question. Okay, I'll wait for the other item to talk about roadway improvements.
Next project in your book is one we're very excited about. We've started conceptual design on, is the Gilboa Ave Solar Pavilion project. The city received a Timber for Transit grant for the design and construction of the facility. We're already working with our consultant, NextGen, on this project, and we anticipate it will be ready for construction in 2027 in coordination with the downtown construction project.
Questions on that one?
Next project we're also very excited about. This was this project was due to the collaboration and hard work of our former assistant DPW director, Duncan Watson, working with at Harris Center. This is the Jordan Road Salamander Crossing. We're receiving federal funding administered through New Hampshire Fish and Game at better than our normal federal funding, 80-20. This is actually 90-10. And even better yet, our local match can be met with in-kind funding. So essentially, we'll track the engineering hours that we put towards the design of this project and coordination of meetings, and that will likely pay for the city's in-kind match for this project. So with this project, we anticipate a formal award within the next couple of weeks and start of engineering services in the spring as part of the amphibian migration period.
So, are there questions about the salamander? Okay, then I will move on. While Brian is very excited about salamander crossings, I'm very excited about this next project, which is the liquid brine pretreatment system. So across the Northeast, communities like Keene have started to see increasing concentrations of chloride in the groundwater and surface water. And it's no real great mystery of where that chloride is coming from. It comes from our winter maintenance of roadways. So we have started seeing a little slow uptick in chloride concentrations in our monitoring wells. It's certainly nothing that we're concerned about or dangerous levels or anything like that. But at the same time, it's something we would like to avoid continuing. We want to reverse that trend. When we put this project together in the fall and started planning for it, we were looking at different systems and whatnot, and we thought we would need about 8 of these distribution systems in order to cover the city. Since we put this estimate together, we actually found a company that is doing a pilot test with us right now. You may have seen during the last couple of ice storms events where some of the main thoroughfares in the city, Marlborough Street, Main Street, Court, Washington, West Street, were treated with a liquid brine solution in advance of the storm. So the idea essentially is to treat it with a liquid brine before the storm event happens. You can spray the liquid on up to about 12 hours before precipitation actually starts. Once the storm begins, it sort of rehydrates that brine. We're using a magnesium chloride solution, and the advantage of that is it works at a much lower temperature than sodium chloride solution. And the upshot is just that you can use a lot less chloride overall. So during the storm, you don't have to keep reapplying rock salt. And after the storm, you have to use much less in order to get it cleaned up. Basically, you're preventing the snow and the ice from sticking to the road in the first place. And I'd say we have limited data that we've collected so far. We haven't done very much of it, but the initial first storms with the system have proven to be pretty good. So I think we're happy with the results. So this project is going to stay in there. It's proposed for 2029. I would expect when we redo the CIP in a couple of years, that's going to be adjusted. I think we're finding that we probably don't need 8 distributors to do the whole city. We're probably looking more like 4. So there'll be some adjustments, but we are happy and pleased with the initial results.
I just want to say thank you. I remember hearing the statistic that New Hampshire uses the greatest amount of road salt in all of the states, like all of our 50 states, and I'm sure we do that for lots of reasons, but I really appreciate the department stepping forward and looking for solutions proactively before we do more damage to our waterway systems.
Great.
So, thank you.
Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jacob Favalis, Main Street Ward 1 Councilor. Just a kind of logistics question. Is there anything that we need to do to existing public works equipment is there any retrofitting that needs to happen to mount these systems, or do they kind of integrate with the large pieces of equipment that we already have?
So the pilot study that we're doing right now, essentially we have a lease with the vendor. They're leasing us the equipment at no cost with the understanding that we have to buy the materials from them. And that equipment is just a self-contained unit, all in one package that sits in the back of our regular plow trucks. So there's very little upfront investment that we had to use. Long term, if we go forward with a full program, we'd probably still be looking at acquiring the actual distribution systems. But they don't require retrofitting. They're just packages that sit in the back of an existing truck.
Next item in your packet is the Lower Winchester Street reconstruction project. This is a DOT project 80/20 funding. The costs have been increased slightly for this project to reflect the most current engineer's opinion of probable engineering costs. The other change that we're making in conjunction with the DOT's 10-year plan is the construction funding was planned to be allocated in fiscal years 25 and 26, with DOT pushing this project out to construction in fiscal year 29. We're updating our funding allocation to match that. So essentially, these updates are just to be in alignment with DOT's funding in the 10-year plan as well. There's no sense in allocating money early for a project we know is going to be sitting on the shelf for 5 years. With that, we already talked about it slightly, but we are looking to pull out the bridge scope of work to construct that before the entire Lower Winchester Street project. And when we were made aware of this change in the dates for construction, that's when we included as part of the road rehabilitation project last year, a change order to do rehab paving on that southern end of Winchester Street to essentially limp us along till we're able to reconstruct. The condition it was in wasn't going to make it until 2029. That was great insight by the Highway Superintendent Mitchell Smith. I'd like to give him credit for that as part of this meeting officially. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on Lower Winchester Street. The next project, and I'll try and expand upon it as much as possible to answer the questions that have already been arised, is the road rehabilitation project. Essentially, what we're looking to do is reallocate the planned fiscal year 27 funding for the downtown project reconstruction. That will eliminate the streets that were planned for fiscal year 27 and the previous CIP, and they will be moved into future CIPs in years 28 and beyond where they make sense. What the engineer who is responsible for the design, bidding, and construction of these projects does to get the maximum benefit of the cost of this program to the city is we group areas of road rehabilitation based on the need and scoring. And by doing that, a contractor doesn't have to drive all around the city to do different paving areas, different streets, generalizes it to one area. So what we did is took out the fiscal year 27 planned paved streets, programmed them back into fiscal year 28 through fiscal year 32. That adds roughly $150,000 add per year to the previous CIP. which is consistent with inflation and what we're seeing for increasing prices for paving. So it's pretty consistent with the last CIP for the road rehab project. There's this winter, I think it's no mystery to anyone. It's been extremely brutal on the roads, the most so in a while. Where we look to make improvements for that, we have the highway foreman and highway superintendent identifying areas that are beyond what they can repair, and we'll look to do as either a change order or a project unit price cost, get repairs of those locations that go beyond what highway can repair with the previous allocated unspent funds and potentially the highway operating funds. We'll essentially need to get creative for these areas that have gotten beaten up bad enough by the winter that they need more immediate attention by the city.
Does the committee have any questions? Any questions from the public? Go ahead.
I do. Why this particular winter more brutal than any other? What are the factors that have materials changed or construction practices changed such that we haven't had the huge dips actually in temperatures that we have in previous winters? So I'm curious, what has changed?
So when it comes to heaving and roads getting messed up, it's not so much the storms as it's much the temperature differential. You know, we've got warmer temperature, then we've got colder temperature, and that really shakes up the road quite a bit. We're even seeing where the state did repaved 101, the cracks where they paved just last year are already showing through in a lot of locations, and a lot of that's from the differential settlement of the frost in the ground has been the deepest it's been in many years. It was at some point, I think, over 4 feet, and then the freeze thaw of it being warm and then really cold really does a number on the roads. That with the plowing, which really hinders our preservations program. The preservation program is part of the road rehab program. Essentially what we like to do is at like a quarter of the cost or less, we try and keep from getting to the point that we need to mill or rebuild the road. We're doing either a slight overlay or a fog seal on the road. You know, when we have winters like we did with the amount of plowing we needed to do this past year, basically strips off all the fog seal. And there's no way we could have expected that based on the previous years, which have basically been pretty mild. Another thing was it was cold really early. We shut down construction, I would say, almost 2 months earlier than we usually do. And that hurt both our construction operations and just general operations of the city. So it's a great question. There's a lot of factors, and we're going to do everything we can to address that for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Unrelated to the winter, this was the first summer where the temperatures got so hot that the sidewalks, at least on the street that I live, actually, I don't know what the word is, erupted, so that they were like way up like this. Is that something with the changing climate that we're going to be seeing more frequently?
You know, it's a testament to the director's developed asset management system where we look at the specific locations where that's happening, and it helps us understand why it's happening. Some of it's because of the heat, some of it's because poor gravel, and so where we identify, groupings of where that is happening, we start to understand why it's happening.
In specific areas.
In specific areas, for sure. And then we do have those areas identified, and I'll speak to it in the sidewalk program as well, that we did see a lot of that buckling and do understand ways to fix it and remediate that for sure.
So I focused on pointing out the sidewalk, but it seemed like there was like rippling and such that happened also during that heat on West Street on the roads. Is that similar in nature?
It's very real. I mean, fresher asphalt, higher temperatures, you could step in it and it feels a little mushy sometimes. Typically in New England, that's not something we see a lot. It's more for like Arizona, California, Florida, those areas. But yeah, it did get hot enough last year that we did start to see some of that as well, yeah.
Probably just repeating what you've said, maybe in a little simpler terms. I don't think people understand how powerful ice can be. Last week, it was freezing temperatures. 2 days ago, it was 71 degrees. All this water is melted. It's on the road. It's in the cracks on the sidewalk. And tonight, it's going to freeze. And so that ice is going to push those materials apart. And you'll have more people complaining about bigger potholes the day after.
And as much as, I'm a huge fan of 71 degrees. I was, out in my T-shirt on Tuesday. But when the ground is saturated with spring thaw and you have those warm temperatures, the saturated gravel like that is just not able to support the loads like good dry gravel is. And it's really when the road is saturated and thawed is when you get the most damage and when those potholes appear, because the pavement itself isn't what's supporting the weight of that truck, it's the gravel underneath it. And when you liquefy it, it just doesn't do the same job.
Yeah, we're ready.
You finally hit the right page. So, Jay Kahn, Darling Road. And so with the, last summer was an incredible improvement to city roads and sidewalks. I can't compliment the staff enough to reflect the kind of appreciation there was of constituents throughout the city. It was really remarkable. The sidewalk program was incredible. The new paver was very valuable. And the amount of roadway, whether it was 1.2 or 1.4, it was a wow.
Thank you.
And because you were in every ward around the city, something, you could just drive around the city and I think our residents really appreciated what we did. Downtown has to get done. There has to be dollars reallocated from someplace. I think we are challenging ourselves and our residents to, after this kind of a winter, where I think the number of snow incidents has been requiring plowing, has been quite exceptional in my 38 years. So I think the expectations are high for what we can do this summer. And I recognize that we are talking about making compromises within a department's budget. But I think the challenge, and I'm not looking for an answer tonight, but I think the challenge that there is for us with the CIP is, how do we find some dollars to make sure that a program like last summer can help improve some of those roadways that had been really beaten up badly over this winter? I don't think there's an answer tonight, and I don't want to look for it. But I think the committee and I think the manager and director need to give some thought to, is this the only department that can take the reduction? Are there some other things? And I've got a couple of favorites. I'll be glad to pass them on, but I think we all need to be thinking about, if you agree with me, that that these programs were so successful this last year that the expectations are as high as I think they are going to be, that putting things off for a year or two is going to be tough. And where are those potential compromises elsewhere in the budget?
So there's a few things. We're talking, the downtown project is road construction and infrastructure. It makes the most sense to use other road construction dollars and reallocate it to that project when we are under so much stress right now financially and attempting to mitigate impacts to the tax rate and not increase the debt more than we have to. So that seemed to make the most sense to me, and it still does. If you look at the list of projects on your funding sheet, you can see that many of those projects are tied to grants. So they're 80/20, the Lower Winchester Street money, or there's some other reason that they're in fiscal year 27. So it makes it very difficult to try to say we can find one other project for $1.4 million and reallocate that. The other option that you have is your capital reserve appropriations. Those you could delay or reduce, but the problem you have with that is they are tied to projects, an ambulance replacement, a fire truck replacement, that we're spreading the cost of that asset replacement out over multiple years using the capital reserve appropriation. The other thing, and using more of the fund balance is always an option, but we have been as aggressive as we feel we can be right now with the fund balance until we know for sure that we're going to be within the fiscal policy guidelines. And so it's a real challenge. We did not want to have to delay or reshuffle projects that we were planning for fiscal 27. But given the fact that we are talking about a downtown project that has, the costs have escalated so much and we've already cut all that we can from the project, it made the most sense to reallocate road work for road work.
And I don't believe we've made any serious adjustments to the operating budget. And much of the repairs after a bad winter or any winter comes out of routine maintenance. There's a plan that kicks in as soon as the last plow is put away. And I don't believe there's any forecast that that's going to be diminished in this summer. And I think the other side of that entire process of what we're getting done this coming year is we can only do so much. We can only dig up so many roads, and we can only detour so much traffic. So I'm sure there's been a really good analysis of what we can move forward with and what we should put on the shelf. But you had something?
I was just going to basically address the same point, that a lot of the work that the mayor was very complimentary of, and I appreciate his kind remarks, that was done by city forces using operating budget funds. The sidewalk program was relatively low cost using, city funds operating budget. Every year, our staff, our highway crew, has an operating budget of about $180,000 for roadway repairs. That's the spot repairs that they use for like the drag box paving. In no way is that going to replace the paving program, but it will give us a tool in the toolbox to address some of the worst problem areas. So it's not a complete answer to the mayor's concern. I totally get that, but it's something that we'll still be doing.
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jacob Favelis, Main Street, Ward 1 Councilor. I have an initial question, then potentially a follow-up question. So I want to make sure that I'm understanding the timeline correctly, that because of the shifting around of funds in order to offset some of the costs related to the downtown project increases, then we have kind of pushed back the schedule for road rehabilitation by a year. Do I understand that correctly?
Yeah, I think that's right. It's not exactly a year, because it's my understanding that they have shuffled around the timeline, but yes.
Follow-up, Mr. Chair. Okay, thank you. So my follow-up question, again, is around this $442,000 price tag for the downtown public bathroom. There's the $442,000 that is planned in this draft to be allocated in FY '28, we're moved to the road rehab line for FY '28. Would that help the Public Works Department play a little bit of catch-up on road rehab that has been shuffled around, and whether it's a year or not delayed?
It's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, those are the hard choices that the council gets to make. The competing interests, and balancing it all.
When was the last time we had a downtown public bathroom? We have been without the public bathroom at the former bus station for how long? Can someone tell me? Over a decade?
At least 8 years, because I've been here for eight
Yeah.
and a half.
Okay, so I get it about the road, but this particular person's, do you have a better answer there?
2012.
2012, okay. So 13 years. So as a person who lives downtown, very close to downtown, I can speak personally that it is pretty shameful to see people trying to hide behind things to go poop. So I get it. We got roads and we got holes, but I'm sorry, to this counselor's opinion, that's this counselor's opinion.
Okay. Counselor?
I just want to make sure I hear all the parties. You had stated this was tough to bring up on the bathroom, but if the council approved it, it would go into next year's operation budget. Yeah, so if we don't approve it, that money may not be spent because you're still waiting right now on how far we're coming up to a maximum. So even if we come up to the maximum, we may have a choice, and we decide to spend that 400,000, then we have to take that 400,000 out of other parts of the operation budget. So it's a council's choice. May not be very easy, but it'll be our choice.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We haven't gotten to the operating budget yet, and so there are fiscal parameters we will need to meet. I'm trying to get us in the best position possible with the proposals to be able to meet them, but we won't know until we have all of the calculations for the operation budget and what that looks like for the bottom line. But it's always the council's choice. So I just bring you a recommendation. I explain why I did the things I did in terms of my proposals, but in the end, it is all up to you.
All set?
I could quantify just a couple more things, if you don't mind, before we move on. So to give you a visual price comparison of what we could get for $450,000 in paving, I think what Public Works would likely advocate to do is Court Street South paving. So from Main Street to the overpass, that section we have bid ready. In the event that there is money available to do that. So that gives you sort of a sense of what could be done with that. That probably is more quantifiable for you. The other aspect I think hasn't really been talked about and needs to be brought up is that based on the conditions of the road from how they were abused over the winter, we likely wouldn't select the roads that were identified in the CIP for fiscal year '27 anyway. We would go forward with it because it was planned in the CIP, and that was the plan. And we don't like to deviate from the plan on planned roads, but looking at those roads and other roads throughout the city, they're definitely a lower priority. So for some reasons, for those reasons, it does make sense to allocate for the downtown project, if I may. With that, I'd love to move on to the sidewalk project. If I could acknowledge sidewalks for a minute, for all they do to keep people off the streets. Very, very important. Same project manager that works on the road rehab project. This past year, we did a condition assessment program for both the roads and sidewalks that sort of reshuffled the deck for our priorities. The other thing that's really a game changer for Public Works, and the mayor spoke to it earlier, is that in a 7 to 8 year CIP period, we do about 10,000 feet of sidewalk, and that's essentially either installing new concrete sidewalk or removing asphalt sidewalk and putting in concrete. Public Works with the new sidewalk paver did about 3 miles. Did about that and an additional 50% in 1 year, in one summer. So that's really done a change for us what we're programming in the CIP going forward. Essentially, we don't need to rip out those sidewalks. They're now passable and in good condition. Otherwise, the quantifiable length of what's programmed in the CIP for sidewalks and the dollar value, essentially a match from the last CIP. We're just being consistent, bidding the same projects, looking to get about 1,000 to 1,200 feet of sidewalk in every year, and generally very successful projects. So.
Brian, I have a question for you.
Yes.
How many miles of sidewalks does the city have?
I'm pretty sure.
52.
Thanks.
So half and half?
Yeah, it's a little bit more, let's see, I think it's a little bit more asphalt than 50/50, but it's close to 50/50.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, City Engineer. I think you actually already answered a couple of questions I was going to ask here. Part of it's around the asphalt piece. So am I correct, though, that the money that we're spending on the asphalt piece is not in the figures that we're looking at here, that this is specifically for the concrete?
It's not included in this at all. The only thing that it impacts is the planning for what sidewalks we do and how much more we're able to get in good condition. But all of the sidewalk overlay is done as part of the operations budget.
Thank you. And I'm just looking at 27 here. We've got Maine listed for the whole year. Is that because it's part of the downtown project, or is that separate?
No, it's a separate section of Maine that was already planned.
Which section of Maine? Do you happen to recall? I know it says middle, but
I think we're quantifying middle as south of the roundabout.
Got it, okay.
Between Maine and the roundabout, basically, yep.
Sounds good. And then one last question, if
Sure.
I may. So I noticed we're getting to some TBDs in 2032 and 2033. And I'm guessing that's because we're just at the end of what we had planned when we initially set the project out. But I know you also mentioned a lot of the sidewalks, because of the asphalt paver, are now in much better condition. Roughly when do we plan to maybe set what those future sidewalks are going to be? Are we going to have to go back out and do another reeval of conditions at some point? Or are we going to use the initial kind of evaluations that we used in initial planning to set those next years? Just curious as to your thoughts on the long-term planning there.
So as planning, we program in every 5 years an assessment of both the roads and sidewalks and use that updated data. The difficult part about that is after this winter, the road data is basically out the door. It's highly impacted. The sidewalk data is pretty consistent. The only thing that's, I'd say, has really been variable is the heaving from last year. That's a wrinkle that we weren't really expecting. And I think, so some of the TBD, we don't want to plan out the last couple of years because basically we want to have flexibility to be able to build in what we notice deteriorating. I mean, this is what's planned. We've planned this for a while. That makes sense. And I think that gives us flexibility in putting that in for the next CIP.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Philip Jones, City Councilor, Ward 5. In past CIPs, we used to have a formula of asphalt versus concrete, and it was always cost versus shelf life. And we haven't done that for the past few years. And I think it would be good for the council to know before it gets that far in the program what the cost is versus shelf life on both entities.
So we actually did look at that number again when the sidewalk asset management plan was developed and presented to MSFI. I want to say spring of '23, I think. They all blur together. It's amazing. We looked at that again, and honestly, I really wanted the answer to be that asphalt sidewalks were more cost effective because for the dollar for dollar, we could be doing a lot more asphalt than concrete. But the calculus still suggests that over the life expectancy of that sidewalk, concrete and granite curbing is still your best investment. They wear much better than asphalt. Asphalt curbing in particular just does not hold up in our climate with the plowing. A number of communities in our region, you'll find asphalt sidewalks with granite curbing. Invariably, what you'll see is that the asphalt settles, it peels away from the granite, and it becomes basically a tripping hazard. Granite curbing and concrete sidewalks, unfortunately, is still the best option. It's just really expensive.
Thank you. The next project is the Stormwater and Stream Channel Maintenance Program. This was added to the last CIP. It was sort of a last-minute add with no real scope. We've now defined that scope and where we want to go with that. We want to essentially rehabilitate the tax ditches throughout the city to be functional and minimize flooding in those areas and perform stormwater mitigation for future flows. Previously, this was programmed for $200,000 a year. We've now broken that up to reflect the phasing. What potentially may happen, we're designing two projects at the same time to be bid ready, and then we would wait for the allocation of these funds to build up enough to do those construction services for those projects, either by phase or construction when the money's available. Also, depending on the scope of the improvements that are done, it's also potentially something that could be self-performed by Public Works, but that would depend on both availability and the scope of the project.
Will this project be presented to the Conservation Commission in terms of the stabilization and the types of materials that will be used for that stabilization? This is quite a bit of lineal feet throughout our entire community in terms of the types of seed and plants and shrubs that potentially be used.
So the current project being designed, the Tannery Brook rehabilitation and Martell Court side slopes, both will need to go to the CONSCOM for review and approval associated with those projects, yes.
Terrific, thank you.
Yep. The next is another stormwater resiliency program, stormwater main lining program. We're actually performing stormwater lining on Emerald Street as part of this program, essentially where we've got existing CMP culverts that meet capacity but are in poor condition, need replacement. We like the line because there's a benefit, there's a cost benefit there. We don't need to dig up the road and that. So we have this programmed out. The design fees, you may notice, are quite significantly smaller than other design fees on projects. That's because it's essentially for CCTV work, and most of the design would be done in-house by our engineering division, where we're looking to get additional design costs is where the scope of work that needs to be done goes beyond what we're capable of doing within the engineering division, whether that be wetland delineation, permitting, or CCTV of existing drain lines. This program and the spend and project locations consistent with the last CIP, and essentially, if we had unlimited amount of money, we could probably do 20 miles of drain pipe. So there's a large need of needing to continue with this program for asset rehabilitation.
Questions?
Next project is another stormwater resiliency project. This project funds areas where we can't line, there's capacity issues, and the drainage infrastructure needs to be removed and replaced and improved. Specifically of recently, Island Street fell into this category. Court Street, Main Street are being funded by this program to address those stormwater resiliency problems. We look to, and we'll discuss it later as part of the Water and Sewer Fund, we look to complete the projects on specific streets within the same fiscal year. So water project, sewer project, drain project, all in the same year. In fiscal year 29, we're consistent with the previous CIP in doing Church Street, and then essentially is pretty much consistent with what had been planned in this previous CIP. There's some increase in cost over the lifetime of the program that's due to the cost increase we're seeing in the bidding climate within the city and reflected with the cost of inflations we're seeing.
Questions?
Thank you. The next project is a stormwater spot repair program project. This isn't a designed, and this typically isn't a designed and bid for construction project. This is more as things come up. We get a sinkhole, there's a problem with a catch basin or a culvert that's too deep for our crews to be able to take care of. We'll hire a contractor to perform this work. We typically use these funds every year to do point repairs on culverts or other drainage infrastructure.
Questions on that?
This next project funds the engineering analysis involved with all these other stormwater projects. Some of them specifically have engineering fees. This essentially is for us to hire a consultant engineer to perform stormwater sizing calculations and AOT permitting for projects that we have coming up, large stormwater projects. At one point, this was a yearly allocation where we don't use it frequently enough, and we're requesting a every other year allocation for this program.
Any questions on that?
I want to say thank you. We have not had a huge flood in quite some time, but they are coming. So I appreciate this staying on our radar to make sure that we have as much capacity within the city to handle them well. So thank you.
Next project is traffic signal and flashing signal replacement program. There's a summary of locations. After the Central Square project, a majority of the traffic signals in the city that require replacement will be included as part of the West Street reconstruction project, a project I will be talking about in a couple of minutes. The other allocation of funding is based on the findings of the Safe Street for All grant program and their recommendations that were identified in that program. So this is an increase in the previous CIP, essentially because in the last CIP, after fiscal year 29, there was no planned spend on this. With this program, we would essentially get the city's traffic signal and flashing signals both in compliance with current standards and in a serviceable condition for the foreseeable future.
Questions on that?
Next project is West Street Corridor Improvements Project. This is a little ways out and was in the previous CIP planned for fiscal year 27 consultant services for preliminary engineering. DOT, like Lower Winchester Street and a couple of other projects in the 10-year plan, has moved funding out for this project. So this project has been updated to reflect that DOT 10-year plan. It's 80-20 funding. We will be looking to start preliminary engineering study and preliminary design in fiscal year 28 as part of this project.
Mayor.
Jay Kahn, Darling Road. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I look to where are some options, this is one I just want to call to the committee's attention. With this project being moved out to fiscal 32, and we're approving a 2-year capital plan, this one, to me, would be something to move out to 29. And anyway, I just offer that for the committee's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that the end of your plan?
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
He wishes that that were the end. Next up will be, I'll be asking Chelsea to join us. Chelsea is going to represent the parking fund, and I believe Brian is going to stay in the hot seat for a little bit longer.
I will.
So page 117 in the big book is the beginning of the parking fund.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and committee members. I'm Chelsea North, Parking Operations Manager. Parking is a critical piece of downtown infrastructure, and the city's self-funded parking fund exists to maintain, operate, and improve the assets that support residents, employees, and visitors coming into the downtown. The CIP projects we'll review tonight represent the investments needed to maintain parking assets. And based on current fund projections and upcoming capital needs, meter rate increases will need to be evaluated within the calendar year to ensure the continued financial stability of the fund. Rate considerations will be benchmarked to similar area market rates and fund revenue needs. And with that information, I'll turn it over to Brian to discuss the projects.
Thank you. So the biggest change in the parking program projects and programs is actually a deletion. Programmed in the previous CIP was the west side parking structure, which you may recall in the previous year, 2025, we did a feasibility and needs assessment study, and it was determined that at this time there isn't a need, or the allocated budget wasn't nearly sufficient enough for what we needed for construction. So in light of that, that project program has been eliminated from the parking projects. That did allocate about 1.1 million in fiscal year 26 for final design for the parking garage, and 12.6 million in fiscal year 28 for the construction of the west side garage. Neither of those are included in the current request for projects for the CIP. The other projects are specifically the City Hall Parking Structural Maintenance Program. We basically are seeing that every 3 to 4 years we need routine maintenance on both the concrete and the steel. We're currently in the process of awarding a contract to the rehab of the city parking garage. Well needed. I know there was some concrete on the underlayment that almost hit the mayor's car. We obviously don't want that to happen. We're executing that contract as we speak. Why we're asking for fiscal year 27 funding in addition to that is that there were a number of would be nice to have aspects as part of that project that we would like to incorporate in that project with that contractor to get the maximum benefit of those funds to the city. So that's why we're asking for those funds in '27. Fiscal year '30 is for additional planned proactive concrete repairs, repainting, restriping, exposed metal, basically sort of like the road rehab and preservations program where we want to maintain as well as we can so we don't have to do a full replacement. And so we're planning that funding every 4 years to be able to do that effectively.
Questions?
Next project is a change to what was previously planned. In the last CIP, the EV charging stations were scheduled for additional furnish and installation in fiscal year '27, which would be this coming year. That's now been pushed out to fiscal year '32. The reason for that is that we've saw sort of a topping off of usage and then a steep decline. So we need some time to reevaluate what makes sense for that program. And another positive for the city is that as part of the Gilbo Ave Solar Pavilion project, we're required to install one EV car charging station as part of that development. So the reality is by the next update of the CIP, we may not identify this as a need for additional stations based on the use.
Questions?
The surface parking lot maintenance program, so the city, like the road preservations program, does a crack seal and a fog seal on the parking lots. That extends the serviceable life of the parking lots as much as possible. We did a batch in fiscal year '22 and another batch, the remainder this past year. Essentially, we program that funding in every couple of years to be able to make sure we don't have to do a full replacement, which would cost 4 to 5 times as much as what we're requesting to allocate in those years. There's also, as part of this funding, a need to replace parking kiosks, signage, and ancillary equipment as part of those facilities.
Questions?
The last project, the Wells Street Parking Structure Maintenance Program, similar to City Hall parking garage, except for we recently put down a traffic membrane on that facility, and so the planned funding is for preventative maintenance to make sure that we don't have to put a large investment all at once into that facility.
Questions on that?
We're always repairing or trying to put more life-saving onto Wells Street. What is the realistic point where we have to say enough's enough? We should be saving the money for a new parking facility?
I've actually had this debate with my staff, so it's funny you should ask the question. The reality is that it seems like we are doing a lot of maintenance, and garages are very expensive to maintain. They're tough structures. That said, the cost of replacing that structure, as we saw recently with the Gilbo Ave parking garage study, is incredibly expensive. That garage still has plenty of life left in it, but it's going to be something where to see that life and to get the maximum value of the structure, we're going to have to, as Brian alluded to, make continuous investments in preventative maintenance and keeping it in good condition rather than allowing it to deteriorate to the point where now we're looking at a structural replacement.
So on two, no matter how tight the budgets may be going forward, it would be kind of really not in our best interest to delay any maintenance on that facility.
Yeah, deferred maintenance is always going to cost you more money in the long run.
briefly, I just would like to give a thank you to the Public Works staff and the engineers as well. I see a lot of synergy with the Gilboa Street solar array, the equipment for that new solar. In fact, you didn't tell us today how much energy we will be generating. I'd like to make sure our newspaper man in the room understands the amount of energy we'll be generating with that, just as an aside.
I don't recall the exact, I guess, wattage or amperage, but it's more than enough. I think it's 50% more than what we need to power all of downtown. So it essentially offsets all of the downtown electricity use by the use of that pavilion.
Terrific. So Gilbert Street Solar Array, the solar array equipment being able to be part of the downtown bathroom, synergy there, and the EV charging station benefiting from the requirements for the grant for the solar array. I just want to say thank you. I know that takes a lot of coordinating. That's greatly to the city's benefit. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
Thank you. Chelsea mentioned it, and I want to touch on it as well. And thank you to Carrie for helping. On this page 123, you'll see a parking fund projection, the multi-year projection. We have to be very careful that we are making our capital appropriations and maintaining fund balance from year to year. What we're seeing is stretching an awful lot how much we can put into the capital appropriations while maintaining a minimum fund balance. And so although we're okay for maybe a year or two, we had a bit of a breathtaking moment when we were looking 5-6 years out at watching that fund balance really dwindle to next to nothing. So that is why we will be coming back to you looking for a parking fee increase. The hope is that it will just be for on-street parking and lot parking and not looking at raising all the fines and all of the permits. But as part of the operating budget process or shortly thereafter, we'll be coming back to you with a rate increase request.
Thank you. We do fare better on the Wells Street lot than this one out back in terms of maintenance dollars. Isn't that correct?
I wasn't around for the construction of either of those garages, so, but I do know that the City Hall garage is a lot older, and I think it's probably had more iterations of that maintenance over time. And yeah, it's fair to say that today the City Hall garage is not in as good a shape as the Wells Street garage.
Okay, thank you. Other questions for parking fund? Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're going to let Brian take a break here for a second, and I'm going to ask Ben Hoy to come up and help us talk about the solid waste fund.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Ben Hoy. I'm the City of Keene Solid Waste Manager, for the record. The Solid Waste Fund is an incredible resource that we have at the City of Keene Transfer Station. Currently we have $2.5 million in the account. That's just from years of good business. We process 30,000 tons of municipal solid waste annually, so every single year, 30,000 tons. We also process 6,000 tons of recyclables. So we're keeping that out of the waste stream. We're receiving revenue for those recyclables, and likewise with the municipal solid waste. So with that, year after year, we're putting money into the solid waste fund. I think for 2026 and 2027, we're looking to put in $350,000 for each year. It really is a testament to just the business practices of my predecessor, Duncan Watson. It's fun to be there. It's fun to know that we're in the black. There's not a lot of recycling centers. In fact, I don't think there's any recycling centers in the whole state that are in the black. So we're very proud to have a solid waste fund that's self-sustaining and kind of keeps the lights on for us. And with that, we have some needs. We've been doing a tremendous amount of business. We've been doing a lot of wear and tear over the past 30 years. And that money has been put away for moments just like this. We have invested already in recycling equipment. We have a new in-feed conveyor, a new sorting line conveyor. Machine X is drawing up the installation process right now, and we're really excited to get that installed. Our staff's excited, and I think the general public's going to be pretty excited once they see all of this equipment installed. But we have 4 projects that we're looking to implement in 2026 and 2027. We have a fire suppression system on page 138. The fire suppression system, we have an existing 30,000 gallon water cistern, and we are looking to pipe that fire suppression system to our sprinkler head system, which is currently dry. So when we have fires, there's no water coming out of those sprinkler heads. The fire suppression system would link the cistern to the sprinkler system. And with the investment that we currently have, the recycling in-feed conveyor, the recycling sorting line conveyor, those fires are within 20 feet of that area. They're right behind it. So if we get a fire that's uncontrolled, which, I mean, with all the action that the transfer station gets, it can easily get uncontrolled. That could be an issue. So we are looking for the city of Keene to protect its investment in recycling and help us out with this fire suppression system. So that's of the utmost importance to me and my staff, the public, the safety of the public and the safety of our staff, and also this protecting those dollars that we're investing into our new recycling equipment. Another important area to kind of follow up with protecting our investment is the climate-controlled processing area. This area is where the workers are spending 75–80% of their time. It's currently very cold in the area. There's no natural light. It's a dark and dismal working area currently. It served us well for 30 years, but it really has shown its signs of wear. I'd like to have a protected area, so that is a very important part of our process moving forward. And I know it would put a lot of smiles on our employees' faces, so myself included. And then as far as our other projects, 2020, I'm sorry, so that was page 135. 2026, 2027, we are looking at the upper level pavement project. And the upper level pavement project is just going to, especially in the winter months, kind of bridge our whole facility together. We have instances where don't go up in the hill. It's slippery up there. There's ruts up there. There's dirt and mud, and I mean, with the paved area, it really does open up our entire space. And we do have a lot of people that visit the recycling center, and it would really, I think, transfer some of the space. People would want to be up top if they could kind of see that there's a paved road going up there. Not everyone has a four-wheel drive truck, so it's just important to have, I think, a nice paved area at the top of our facility. And it would be a real game changer as far as just getting around the site and visiting our compost area, which is at the top of the hill. So yeah, that's a very important part of what we're looking to get done. Compost is on the horizon as well. I mean, we're reduce, reuse, recycle. If we can reduce waste, I mean, compost represents a significant portion of our waste. If we can turn that into our gardens and maybe make some flower beds at the transfer station, I mean that'd be a lot of fun for us and save us some money in the long run. So we have a lot of projects. We have a lot of needs. We've done really well business-wise, but we really do need to take care of ourselves. We have a lot of needs and a lot of wear and tear. So these projects are very important to kind of keep that going and kind of keep a positive outlook on what we're doing. And I think we're doing a great job with the recycling end of it, and the whole business system has been a pleasure to kind of be a part of. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Questions?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Compost. I have been able to use this compost in the years where we did have the funds to grind it up.
Sure.
Recommend it to clients throughout the city as a way to be using the leaves that we store up there and bringing them back for our soil quality. I really am happy to see that we'll be able to do this on a regular basis. The issue of organics diversion is an issue countrywide. If I'm not mistaken, Vermont has legislated this. I'm glad to see that we're acting proactively to put these organics to use on a regular basis for the benefit of our community and of our growing situations for all of our residents. Thank you.
Certainly. Yes, thank you. And we have a pile of freshly ground compost at the top of the hill that's free to the public if you bring your own bucket or truck. We
Is
can
it
load your truck.
steaming?
Oh, yeah, it's definitely steaming.
Baby.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Okay.
I should add, since he's plugging away, that there is a small stockpile of leaf compost that's available at the Public Works on Marlborough Street, so you don't have to go all the way to the transfer station. That tends to run out from time to time, but we do keep a small pile there during the warmer season.
Open to the public.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
For Keene residents.
For Keene residents. Terrific.
Okay.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Not a question, just a comment. I'm very pleased to see the climate-controlled processing area making its way into the capital plan for fiscal '27. That facility hasn't seen a lot of love over the years from the city, and it's a difficult job, and they work under very difficult conditions. So glad to see that that is being proposed for fiscal '27.
All right.
Well, that brings us to the main event for the
Wow.
night. Oh,
Counselor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before he started the next subject, I just wanted to bring up one subject. What I did notice is, and thank you for doing this, with every project you put in the goals. Unfortunately, that's from our old master plan because they were working on this plan before we finished our master plan. So, and as staff knows, I always wanted an implementation process within our new master plan, which we did, and I believe staff is working on a dashboard to help implement that. And I'm hoping that these things can get plugged into that, because you're checking off a lot of good boxes here. So will it make it to that dashboard? Okay, and I just wanted to do that before you start on your next subject. Thank you.
Yes.
When will that dashboard be?
So that's a great question. We are currently working on the budget. Once we finish with the budget, we will be looking at dashboards for all sorts of things. And one of them that community development has talked about is one for master plan elements that we might want to track, such as housing. You know, how much housing stock is created each year, what's happening with the changes to ADUs, is that encouraging more development? So dashboards similar to that, but I honestly don't have a timeline for you.
When you say dashboard, they'll be available to the public
Public,
online?
yes, correct.
Excellent. Implementation. Thank you.
okay. On to the good stuff.
Which one?
We're
all good.
going to be moving on to the sewer funds, and I would invite Assistant Public Works Director Aaron and his crew of motley fools. Aaron, there's a copy of this.
Okay, thank you. All right, well, thank you very much. Good evening, Aaron Costa, Assistant Public Works Director and Manager of the Wastewater Treatment Plant. Tonight, I have with me Christian Tarr, he's the Utilities Maintenance Manager. Of course, everyone knows Brian Roroff, City Engineer, and Andrew Kaiser, he's our Lab Manager. We're here tonight to discuss the Water and Sewer Fund CIP projects for fiscal year 27 through 33. Just for a background, in case anybody isn't already aware, the water and sewer funds are enterprise funds and are funded by water and sewer rates and are not part of the tax base. And one of the things we're going to be talking about a lot tonight is infrastructure and infrastructure upgrades. And while I believe my staff does a great job maintaining these assets, eventually equipment and infrastructure needs to be replaced or upgraded. But before we start the project review, I'd like to announce that the wastewater plant will be hosting an open house this April, on April 16th, and will be open to the public for tours of our facility. So I'd like to invite all members of the public, of course, City Council and any staff here. The city, along with other wastewater plants across the state, will be open to the public during that week for a Clean Water Week. And the goal is to help us convey our message of what we do and why we do it. So stay tuned for more information on that, please. And, if you want to, please bring your CIP book down. A lot of the projects that we'll be talking about tonight will be highlighted on that tour. So looking forward to that. We have a lot of projects to get through tonight, so I'm hoping we can answer questions right after each project. And the first project we're going to get started with is on page 153, and I'm going to turn that over to Christian Tarr.
Thanks, Aaron.
Before we begin, Aaron, before we begin, is that a sample from the wastewater treatment plant that you
No,
brought?
this is a water
Oh.
that I'm drinking.
I was setting you up so you could say, look how clean our discharge is.
No, we can highlight on that on the tour.
Good evening, everybody. Christian Tarr, Utilities Maintenance Manager. I'm going to speak about a project that Don brought up out of turn. I would reiterate that. This is the Black Brook Wastewater Pump Station, originally designed and installed in the 1990s. It serves the Wyman Road Industrial Park, and getting towards the end of life expectancy with all the equipment. In fiscal year 27, we have money appropriated for design, and in 29 for a level of design or construction oversight, and then construction and implementation of the station.
Okay. Questions?
Moving forward, the next project on 154 is a similar project. This is the Court Street Pump Station, actually even a little bit older, almost 50 years you have to climb down into. Electrical components and pumping is underground. We have to do a confined space entry and typically inform fire and have them for rescue services if needed. So this needs an upgrade as well. In fiscal year 29, we'll be looking at installing an emergency generator. It's the one wastewater station that we currently have that doesn't have that redundant power source. And then in year 32, design, and then in year 33, new above-ground station, which will eliminate that risk.
Questions?
All right, moving on to page 155, the instrumentation program. The wastewater plant is equipped with various online monitoring equipment for process control. And this project replaces in fiscal year 27 an online ammonia analyzer, a nitrate probe, and fiscal year funds the replacement of an online orthophosphate analyzer. All three of these pieces of equipment have been in service since around 2012, and they're due for replacement.
Questions?
For the record, Brian Ruff, City Engineer. The next project is the Lower Winchester Street Reconstruction Project. We already talked about this as part of the Public Works presentation, but this is essentially the sewer improvements as part of that project. There's this, the project overall is 80-20 funding, but this is non-participating cost. It behooves the city to replace that sewer as part of this project while the road's dug up. That way, the road reconstruction cost associated with the sewer replacement is paid as part of that 80-20 split. So essentially reducing the overall cost of that sewer replacement. There was already funds previously allocated for this work. This is the remainder required for construction based on the engineer's opinion of probable construction cost. So,
Questions on that?
Next page, 157, Martell Court Bypass Project. Christian already talked about two of our other wastewater pumping stations. We have 5 altogether. Martell Court is the heartbeat of our collection system. Basically, all the wastewater that comes from the city of Keene and Marlboro passes through this pump station before making its way up to the wastewater treatment plant. This pump station, I can't believe it's almost 3 years. We had a knife gate failure on our effluent force main, and the only way to fix this is with a bypass pipe around the station. And to do that, it's not an easy task. And this project funds, there's $3.3 million roughly in a previous fiscal year that is allocated for this project. In fiscal year 27 is the remainder we believe we will need for construction. And this is going to get you a bypass around the station, and that pipe goes under and through the Ashwheelet River, as well as replacement of those 3 knife gates. And then this bypass will be there in case the station needs to be taken offline in the future for any repairs. And then there'll be a new connection for a new force main. Right now, there's only one pipe that leads from Martel Court to the wastewater plant, and it's been in service since 1985. This will at least give us a stub that we can tie on a new force main onto in the future. And there'll be some additional repairs to the Edgewood gravity sewer main, which is right in the same area, so we're going to be doing a river cut. We may as well repair all of the infrastructure at the same time. We're at 90% design. We hope to be going out for bid very soon, and our goal is to get this completed this construction season.
Very good. Questions on that?
The next project, along the lines with Martel Court again, is the equipment maintenance program. In the station, there's 3 250 horsepower pumps, which run when we have extremely heavy flows or heavy rains, and then 1 50 horsepower pump, which runs the majority of the time when flows are normal. All of these pumps have common wear items that need replacement every 3 to 5 years, be it impellers or coatings to keep the system running properly. We tried to break that down over a 4-year period, so every 4 years, we would be able to do rehabilitation to the equipment. So in fiscal year 27, we're looking for money to actually replace the control system, which automates the pumps to actuate on and off depending on flows. In 29, we'd replace the serviceable wear items on pump 1 and 4. And then in 31, we would move to pump 2 and 3 and continue that cycle on a 4-year cycle for refurbishment. Again at Martel, questions? One more at Martel Court is the fuel tank replacement program. So being the critical infrastructure that it is, it has a 650 kW generator there. That generator had an underground storage tank which failed a test, and we've been running on a temporary tank to keep the station running, in case we had a power loss. This project would actually install a new 2,500 gallon above ground tank that we would have the ability to monitor at all times, see it if it were in any type of failure issue, and keep that station running for the duration of time during a power outage.
Questions on that?
All right, page 160, NEPD's permit renewal program. The city operates the wastewater treatment plant, which has a permit that allows us to discharge treated wastewater back into the Ashwheelet River 24/7, 365. Those permits are good for 5 years. Our current permit expires at the end of this year, early next year, and expected that the new permit will contain discharge parameters and lower discharge limits. And the city will need some professional assistance as we kind of work through that process. There's remaining funds from the last time we went through this process. And so the $75,000 that we're asking in fiscal year 27 will just be a new allocation combined with the existing allocation for this work.
Questions on that?
The next project is the city.
Hang on.
Sorry.
Come right up, sir. Here's some candy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jacob Favelis, Main Street Ward 1 Councilor. Just a question on the why about new parameters and maybe lower discharge limits. Is that something that is specific to the way that the City of Keene's plant has been operating, or is that a change in state guidelines and regulations?
Sure. Well, we don't know what those will be at this point, but we do believe that, the last time we were issued a permit in 2022, we received lower limits for total phosphorus in our summer limits. We received lower ammonia limits in our winter parameters for ammonia. We also received an aluminum limit and total nitrogen annual rolling average limit. So as permits get renewed, regulatory agencies continue to make improvements and make treatment better to better protect the Ashwheeler River.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
The next couple of program projects are essentially run by the engineering division to assist the water and sewer division as part of the CIP. The first being the sewer improvements program. The city basically has a 10-year schedule of sewer improvement locations, most of the pipes being between 70 and 100 years old in poor condition, can't be lined. This is generally consistent with what was in the last CIP. The one change, or the changes being the reshuffling due to the lower Winchester Street adjustment by DOT. Otherwise, the requested funds and project locations are generally consistent with the previous approved CIP.
Questions on that?
Next project is a sewer main lining program. The city just completed about 16,000 linear feet of sewer main lining, primarily on the east side to eliminate infiltration and inflow. As part of that, you may recall, we requested resolutions to use planned fiscal year 27 and 28 funding, so that's why we're showing no funding for those 2 years. Because we've already requested to use that. We will reset the program in fiscal year 29 with the previously planned allocated funding and perform sewer main lining, design and install sewer main lining from fiscal year 29 to the end of the CIP.
Questions?
Similarly, for the sewer main lining or sewer manhole rehab program, we requested to utilize the planned funding for fiscal year 27 and 28. That's why we do not show it in the CIP. We'll restart the program in fiscal year 29. Because of the prices we received on the lining and manhole replacement, we had to reduce the planned scope by about 30%. We would look to do those additional improvements in those planned years in the CIP. And after that, we would be in pretty good shape as far as lining, brick, manholes, and it would be on a case-by-case, as-needed basis. Similar to the Lower Winchester Street project, there's, as part of the state aid bridge grant program, sewer main work that's non-participating is required to be paid by the city. We don't project that we will have a project that involves that until fiscal year 33, but that's built into the CIP as part of that bridge replacement work.
So on to page 166, wastewater treatment plant, advanced treatment. This kind of piggybacks on the last project that I was talking about, the NEPD's discharge permit. So depending on what those new limits are, the plant may not be able to meet them without significant upgrades, as the Public Works Director already brought up in his opening remarks. So because of the unknowns at this time, we haven't added any construction costs, but we put a placeholder in there in fiscal year 29 for some design work. Again, we don't know what it's going to be at this point, but we're thinking about it. And depending on what comes of all of this, there may be funds needed before the end of fiscal year 33, for construction, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Fiscal year 27 does have some money allocated to help us out with a a little problem organism that we have at the plant. It's called Daphnia. It's an indicator of good water quality, but when we get them in our clarifiers, they kind of disrupt the settling process and they can lead to some permit violations. So we want to get some consulting help on how to best rid ourselves of those little bugs. On to page 167, which is the wastewater plant building renovation and demolition program. So this has been a ongoing program that we have, and fiscal year funds the complete renovations of the men and women's bathrooms. And fiscal year 33, again, this building was constructed in the early 80s. This will replace all of the windows and most of the exterior doors, which are original to the building. On to 168, which is the chemical feed system upgrade. What you're looking at there are 2 totes around 300 gallons that are sitting on some containment pads. They're lifted up onto those containment structures using our Kubota tractor and the forks. To the left of that is the little pump house. Basically, we use this chemical to comply with our discharge permit for pH, and we would like to make this a more permanent setup with bulk storage tanks. 2,500 gallon tanks would be great. Indoor, heated. This product does freeze when it gets below 0, so making this a permanent installation would be a great benefit to the plant. Also, when you buy in bulk, you get a better price versus buying in totes.
Aaron spoke about the, oh, sorry, you got a question? Good? Aaron spoke about the permit and the aluminum limits. The next project, the clarifier equipment placement, would replace all the weirs and baffles that are currently on the clarifiers. They kind of allow the water to roll out in a uniform way and keep settling of materials in the tank. Those are made of aluminum, which will not help the aluminum permit moving forward. This project will replace them with a UV-rated composite material that should help with the permit and a lot longer life expectancy.
UV-rated composite material, microplastics. What do we know about this material and the potential for microplastics?
This is actually a fiberglass coated material.
Which will not create microplastics.
I can't answer.
I don't believe it will.
Okay.
It's something that we would need to look into before we begin, specifying the actual materials.
That would be great.
Of course.
Thank you very much.
On to page 170, wastewater plant fiber optic replacement project. This project replaces the 5-mile-long fiber optic network cable that connects the city's network from City Hall to the wastewater plant. It's original, it's at the end of its useful life, and to ensure reliable communications, the fiber needs to be run from City Hall to the wastewater plant. I didn't hear the airport director talk about this, but I hope it's still in his plan. That this will be cost sharing because the wastewater plant is just past the airport. So fiscal year 27 funds that project, and then fiscal year 29 funds the fiber optic replacement around the wastewater treatment plant itself.
All right, the airport director's already left for the evening, lucky him, but in his defense, I will say, he didn't bring it up during his presentation, I think mostly because this project was added to his section, I won't say without his input, but this is really a project that's being designed and managed by IT, and the cost is being split between the airport and the sewer treatment plant.
Oh, go for it. You go first. It was installed 30 years ago, and so was all the other fiber that we have around the city, FYI.
Neither one of us were around for that.
That's right.
So my question is, and I'm sure it's not possible, but microwave, we don't have enough line of sight to do it that way?
No is the answer, the easy answer to that. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
All right, moving on to 171, the grit removal clamshell replacement project. I think I've made this joke before, but I'll make it again. It's the worst arcade claw game you'll ever see. Basically, the first stage of treatment is grit removal, And basically, that big clamshell comes down and just scoops up the grit and takes it out of the channel. And we have to do that about once every year, once every 2 years, depending on conditions. And this piece of equipment is original, and it's served its useful life and needs to be replaced.
Okay. Questions?
The next is an existing project. It's the wastewater treatment plant HVAC replacement. All of the HVAC equipment ages quicker than normal just out of the causes of the environment with hydrogen sulfide and gases. So in 2029, we will be replacing the grit chamber, which is what Aaron just spoke of, the HVAC system over that. 31 would be the process area, which is the sludge processing room. And then in 33, the 2 HVAC units that cover the primary and the secondary buildings.
Questions?
Andrew Kaiser, lab manager. We are looking for in FY27 to replace our atomic absorption spectrometer and upgrade it with an ICP-MS, inductively coupled plasma mass spectrometer. The AA has reached the end of its life. The ICP-MS is an upgraded version in almost every way. These instruments are used to measure metals and other metal-like material in both water and wastewater. The ICP-MS can test more metals at lower concentrations at a much higher throughput. And even beyond that, it can test for metals we're not even looking for. Right now, the AA, I can test one metal at a time, so I can only pick exactly what I'm looking for. This, you can put it in a mode where it just looks for everything, and if there's a peak, that metal's there, so even stuff we're not looking for now, but maybe looking for in 10 years from now, you'll be able to pick it up. And yeah, we're splitting the funds between both the water and sewer department because we do test both our wastewater and drinking water with this instrument.
Okay. Questions? Next one.
Pavement.
Next project is the paving project for the wastewater treatment plant. If you recall, this past year, we paved the access route to the treatment plant. There was some discussion on the walkability of that area. We won't hit on that. That has nothing to do with this. With that project, there were the costs were so advantageous to the city, there were unspent funds, which got me and Aaron to thinking that with those funds, we could likely fund 60 to 70% what it would cost to do the pavement repairs inside the treatment plant, which wasn't originally part of the original project. The original project was just to pave the access route and extend the serviceable life of that access route to the treatment plant. This project will pave inside the treatment plant and extend the serviceable life of the paving in the treatment plant. We will use those unspent funds from the previous paving project, and these funds that we're requesting are the additional funds that we believe we need for the construction of that project.
Questions? Yes.
Any chance that this could wait a little bit so that the roadways could be done? Could this be a swap out?
They're funded from 2 different sources.
Oh, that's right. Okay, sorry.
Valve replacement.
On to 175, the return activated sludge valve replacement. Return activated sludge is a critical part of our process, and we have valves in place to divert RAS into different tanks. The project replaces 2 existing valves. One of them is in really rough shape, and adds 2 additional isolation valves, which will make this whole valve replacement process a little simpler in the future.
Questions?
Wastewater plant roof project. We had the main building was done in the first phase of it, and this smaller section needs to be done. Design and construction in 28 to remove what is referred to as a ballast roof, which has rocks and stone on it, and it will be an adhered EPDM material.
Questions on that?
A little further out in 30 and 31, replacement of the septage pump. Septage is a receiving of holding tanks and septage at the wastewater plant, which is a revenue source for the Keene. Right now, it is original pumps from the 1980s that we continue to use, air-operated equipment that is still maintainable, reaching the end of its expected life, and we should be looking at newer, more cost-effective technologies in the future.
Questions?
And the same thing on the next one would be the sludge replacement project. These are pumps that feed the screw presses that we put the cake out with. These, again, are from 1996, and there's some new updated equipment that is a little more energy efficient that we should be looking to move toward.
Okay, any questions?
179 is the wastewater tank repair program, and we talk a lot about infrastructure, we talk a lot about motors, pumps, et cetera, but this actually works on the backbone of the wastewater treatment plant itself, the tanks, et cetera. So this program funds coatings of the steel structures, repairs to the concrete for these tanks. It's an ongoing program. It is expensive, but these tanks are relatively large, and there's a lot of work that goes into protecting them. Again, they were built in the early 80s. They've been in service since 1985, and they do need repairs from time to time.
Questions?
UV lamp and equipment replacement program, the way the wastewater plant meets its compliance with its E. coli limit in its discharge permit is we use UV light technology to disinfect the water. And these lamps have a usable life, about 14,000 hours. The system consists of around 240 UV lamps, and about every 4 years they need to be replaced. So you'll see this kind of reoccurring through the CIP. Fiscal year 29 replaces the lamps, and again, it'll happen again in fiscal year 33. Fiscal year 32 is replacement of the original quartz sleeves. So what you're seeing there is a cassette of lamps, and the lamps are kind of inside that quartz sleeve. So the quartz sleeve is outside, the lamp is inside. Those quartz sleeves need to be replaced around every 20 years.
Thank you.
And with that, we came to the end of the sewer. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jay Kahn, Darling Road. So after seeing the impressive number of projects and I've been to the wastewater treatment plant, great tour. April 16th, I'll go again. Yeah, expensive equipment and important. So I went back to the multi-year projections to see how are we funding all this. And the good news is there's no rate increase. It doesn't look like that a rate increase. There'll be a rate increase. Okay, I not. Okay.
That was
There will
close.
be. But I guess the point is, there's no real. I'll wait and see.
That's a good idea.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize, I'm going to go back just a little bit as well. It just took me a minute to find what I was looking for. On the sewer improvements program, I just had a question. Are we going to need to tear up the streets in some fashion to be able to do these sewer improvements? I'm looking specifically at George Street and Sullivan Street, which are listed for 27 and 28, and I was looking at the road rehabilitation, and they're listed for major rehabilitation in 2031. And I just want to make sure, I know some of those dates have changed, like with the bridges on George Street and stuff. I just want to make sure we're aligned on, trying to do dig once kind of thing.
Yeah, we can look at that. That's a great catch. Typically, if we know we need to do water and sewer, we'll do them both at the same time, or water, sewer, drain. There's a couple streets we have programmed in where we're doing everything and sidewalk. Could just be an oversight on the road rehab project, and I think we'll make that adjustment. We will want to keep George Street, Sullivan Street within that planned period, because because it works pretty well in the schedule, so we'll just make an adjustment to the road rehab. But great question and great catch. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
To follow up on that, for the people that live around Marlborough Street in that area, the city was doing a really great job of fixing Marlborough Street. And then lo and behold, the gas company came up and tore up Marlborough Street that was just done. And that's why we had those ups and downs. And we've always wondered how a mistake like that could have happened.
I'll take that one since I'll take the heat for that one since it happened well before Brian started with the city. It doesn't seem fair to throw him under the bus. And I also unfortunately need to somewhat defend my friends there at Liberty Utilities. In 2019, we did the infrastructure project on Marlborough Street, water, sewer, drain, some limited drains. We did a little bit of sidewalk and that sort of, but mainly utilities. The intention was around that time we applied for a Transportation Alternatives Program grant that would have funded pretty significant roadscape, streetscape improvements. Bike lanes, extensive sidewalk repair, new crosswalks, pedestrian activated beacons, a formal connection, like a nice rail connection up to the rail trail. The intention was that we would do that project the next summer after the utility work happened. The reality has fallen about 6 years short on that lofty goal. So the good news is that contract has actually been awarded. That it is a state-funded 80/20 Transportation Alternatives Program project, and that'll be going forward here this spring. But the Liberty Utilities is not responsible for the abysmal condition of Marlborough Street. It's really more that we thought we could try to time these projects perfectly together, and it did not work well.
I would say that the big mistake on this one was not getting that little information that you just provided me 60 years late out at that time, because for the last 6 years, I kept saying is, why did the city let it happen? And you just answered that question in 15 seconds. So that was a communication problem.
Good. Anybody else?
On to water. And with me now is Ben Crowder, our Water and Sewer Operations Manager, and he's going to take over on page 190.
Good evening, Ben Crowder, Water and Sewer Operations Manager. Page 190, bulk water fill station. Currently, the city sells water from a hydrant located at Public Works facility to contractors, citizens, and haulers that supply water for swimming pools. The availability of this hydrant is limited to months of May through November and the hours of 7 to 3 Monday through Friday. This project funds a self-serve bulk water station that will allow customers to purchase water 24/7, 365. And the bulk water fill station will have a different rate structure than existing water rates for customers that already are connected to the system, and will provide an additional revenue source for the water fund.
Good thing. Sounds like a good thing.
All right. Chapman Road Water Storage Tank Repair Project, page 191. The city has done a really great job working on our water storage tank since 2018. This is the last tank that needs repair. We repaired the Blackbrook water storage tank that was constructed around 1996. That's a 380,000 gallon tank. We recently completed upgrades to the 1924 buried concrete tank up at the water plant. Tank's 100 years old, and we made some significant investments to protect that asset. I think everyone has seen the new renovated 3 million gallon tank up behind Robin Hood Park. So this is the last of our 6 water storage tanks that needs to be refurbished. Fiscal year 28, $150,000 to refurbish the interior and exterior of the tank, and installation of a safety cable system on the dome of the tank.
Yes. I'd like to go back, I'm sorry, to the bulk water fill station. 24/7, 360 days a year. Have we seen this service water, bulk water station in operation someplace else? How do we know about this? How do we know that it's actually dependable once we invest that money?
There are other stations around, and we have talked to equipment vendors about that. I haven't personally visited one, but in our talking with the equipment vendors, other communities have this type of thing.
Okay, terrific, thank you.
Page 192 would be the emergency generator replacement program. In fiscal year '28, looking for money for replacement for the 250 kW generator at the water treatment plant, which will allow for continued operation at any time there's a power outage. And then in fiscal year 31, the Blackbrook Water Booster Station, which is also part of that Blackbrook Industrial Park area, we would replace the 65 kW generator that's out there to allow for continued running.
Page 193, Glen Road and Fox Ave Water Pump Station Project. The Glen Road Pump Station boosts pressure to customers in higher elevations, approximately 150 homes in the Glen Road, Darling Road area, and provides adequate fire flow during an emergency. Fiscal year '27 funds focuses on the existing equipment in Glen Road, drives, motors, more energy efficient equipment in that station. And fiscal year '30 funds will focus on a similar project at the Fox Ave Booster Station.
Questions?
Which one is this?
194.
No, I apologize. So the next project is the Lower Winchester Street again. This is the water-funded portion, so similar to the sewer, paying for the updates to the city's infrastructure within the project footprint of the federally funded project, maximizing the benefit of the cost to the project to the ratepayers, performing those water system improvements as part of this project. Next project is more of a preventative measure. We've had a number of water main breaks, as you may be aware, over the last couple of years, and most sensitive and I guess impactful to the public at whole and the city's water system is the 16-inch transmission water main that runs through the city. With a recent break of the main, there's a period of time where a majority of the city was without water. So this project is a new project looking to proactively do a assessment of the city's transmission water main, see if there are any manufacturer defects with the installed pipe, identify those locations, and make repairs prior to having additional breaks and impacting services throughout the city. So.
Mr. Chair, if I may add, the manager earlier kind of described how projects typically come into the CIP in the out years and then, patiently wait their turn until it's time for that project to be realized. This one is kind of jumping to the front of the line, and I hope that the council will support that. Brian described a rash of breaks on that 16-inch main over the last several years. We're hoping, fingers crossed, that it's limited to a specific area or a small subset of that total main. But we would like to get this inspection done as soon as possible so we can kind of wrap our heads around what actually needs to be done to fix it.
What is the date? When was this particular 16-inch line
The
laid?
crosstown main was installed in 1957, which actually makes it one of the younger pipes in our inventory, believe it or not. And honestly, ductile iron mains that age shouldn't be failing the way that we're seeing them. So Brian mentioned manufacturing defect. We're hoping that there's a batch of pipe that we got as part of that project that didn't meet the normal specs, and that's why we've had the problems. We don't know that. That's really just hope. We may also find that the whole pipeline has prematurely worn, and then the repair is going to be something much more extensive. So that's why we're kind of pushing this to the front of the pile so we can figure out what needs to be done, and then in subsequent CIPs, we'll come up with a plan for how to fix it.
May I follow up?
Sure.
So by any chance, will this tell you whether this main will have the possibility of being lined instead of replaced? I know we talked about settling makes it impossible to do a lining, but could this be another lining opportunity?
So the lining program has been extremely successful for sewer and drainage, gravity lines. And that's where, the settlement or capacity issues come into play. A few years back, the city did an experiment with water main lining process. I will say where we tried that experiment, it wasn't a good application. The technology at that time, at least, really didn't have a good solution for like every branch that came off of that main. You had to stop that process, cut the pipe open, and begin a new section. It tended to clog up valves and hydrants and that sort of thing. So we kind of abandoned the water main lining program after that experiment because it just didn't feel like it was a good fit for the problems that we were trying to address. That said, this is a transmission main, which means there are fewer services coming off of it, fewer sidelines coming off of it. It may be some combination of repairs, replace, and lining. But we won't know until we understand what the actual issues are.
Well, it's the water fund, and it's the right thing to do, so we won't get any arguments, I don't think. Next one?
Thank you. The next project is the Water Distributions Improvement Program. This is generally consistent with the previous approved CIP, same projects. We working with Water and Sewer Division, have, I'd say, 10 years of, at least at a minimum, of water projects lined up, ready to go. This is essentially two-part funding, where we look to get funding for design-related services and then construction for the following year, so we're always ready to keep advancing water main improvement projects. Start with downtown Court Street. Hastings Ave is one of the last of the previous master plans that we're looking to address, and then do a citywide assessment, update to the master plan as part of the engineering services. Of the program, there's a couple of the previously discussed more major projects: West Street, Lower Winchester Street, Route 101. I will say the price from the price estimate for Route 101 is about doubled since what it was from the last CIP. That's essentially due to the soils that were identified as part of that project. We will not be able to use the planned HDPE pipe, is what's been identified to us, and instead, because of how corrosive the soils are, we'll need to use a ductile iron with a nitrile gasket type pipe, which is a lot more expensive than what we would normally install. So.
Questions?
Next project deals with more of the dam maintenance program we talked about as part of Public Works, wherein Babbage and Woodward Dam are to the benefit of the water supply. Those are funded through the water program. Essentially, what we're looking to do is improve the access roads for both of those locations as part of the funding we are asking to be allocated for this. We have permitting has been approved to perform this work, and we are in a position that we're able and capable to do that. There also, at some point, we'll need to do rehabilitation to the inlet pipes for both these locations. The funding request for that has not been built into the CIP, but it is something that will need to be considered for the next update. Similar to the sewer utility work for the bridge program, the non-participating water replacement work associated with bridge replacement projects is built into the water utility bridge program. This covers the water mains that are required to be replaced as part of the bridges and updated for the planned bridge work as part of the bridge program. Next project is a valve replacement program project. Essentially, engineering division in conjunction with the water sewer division identifies a list of valve replacements and sometimes additions to the water system that help with the operating of the water system. What we're asking for is a little bit of a change from what was in the previous CIP. Essentially, what we're faced with every year is we have enough valves for 2 years, 2 years of work. So we're essentially looking for that up front, and we're hoping after that we'll be able to go back down to the regularly scheduled number of valves that we work on a year. We've built in some yearly inflation to account for the costs that we're seeing. I mean, right now to have a contractor install a 16-inch valve costs us about $32,000. So a significant cost for that type of installation and required to be able to keep up with that system. As it is, the water division, as they work, are maxed out, and we're trying to assist them as much as we can with the maintaining that water main asset.
Page 201, Wellfield Upgrade Program. So the city's water supply is comprised of 2 surface water reservoirs and 4 groundwater wells located on West Street and Court Street. And the facilities are old, and they've served the city well, but it's time to do some upgrades. And so fiscal year 26 actually funds the design for upgrades to Court Street Wellfield, with construction happening in fiscal year 28. Fiscal year 27, I just want to highlight, funds the installation of a fence around the sanitary protective radius at the West Street Well Facility. We tonight accepted a grant for the other 1,000 feet that'll be part of the same project. So just wanted to call that out. And then later in this program, fiscal year 33 will fund design improvements for the West Street Well Facility. And even though it's beyond this current CIP, it's anticipated that somewhere down the road that a new groundwater production well will be installed on city-owned property on the Robertson Field.
Page 202 is the water treatment facilities HVAC and AC systems. Both are original equipment circa 1993. Fiscal year 27 will install or funds for the replacement of the air conditioning unit and associated equipment for controls. And then fiscal year 29 will replace the remainder of the HVAC and air exchange system.
Questions on that?
Page 203, Water Treatment Facility Instrumentation Replacement and Upgrade Program. The water treatment facility is equipped with online monitoring equipment that gives operators ability to make process changes to optimize the water treatment process. Funds are available in fiscal year 28 to replace the online total organic carbon analyzer. This analyzer assists us in the removal of disinfection byproduct precursors.
Questions on that?
We already spoke about project 204 on the sewer side.
205, similar to what we did on the wastewater side with Martel Court, the water treatment facility, water pump and replacement program. What we're looking to do here is continue with the water assets on the same line. So the wear items, cleaning and rewiring of motors, and keep those assets operating as long as possible. Fiscal year 28, Chapman Road Pump Station, which feeds the Chapman tank, we would look at refurbishing those. And then in 30, the Blackbrook Booster Station out at the industrial park, we would look at updating or refurbishing those booster pumps as well.
Questions?
206, water treatment valve and actuator replacement program. This is an ongoing project that we're working on currently, and we just want to continue on and replace all the valves and actuators at the water plant for operating the filters themselves. They're currently all operated pneumatically, so they send an air signal and they use air to open and close. The replacement will involve electronic actuators on most of the valves that are there, and then some of the valves that are simply open and closed will be all electric, eliminating the majority of compressed air consumption at the water plant. And the waste gate actuator project, which is where after a cleaning event, the water is stored in a waste tank, and these tanks actuate open and closed automatically. The actuators that are currently on there, again, are 1993 equipment, and we are looking for, in fiscal year '28, replacing that equipment in-house with my staff. So we would basically buy the actuators and install them in-house, trying to save a little bit of money.
I just want to go back, so it's not what you're talking about, but for you, Aaron, if we go back to the Martel Court, I meant to ask, we had a problem with wipes. Like
Yes.
People, do we still have that issue?
Well, the city invested around $1.5 million to put in a screening system at Martel Court. So basically, as non-flushable material comes into the station, we have a screening system that removes it, it washes it, it compacts it, and it discharges it in a dumpster that just gets landfilled.
So my other question is, did we ever do any kind of campaign for community awareness on that?
We do all the time. Our industrial pretreatment coordinator has done videos, and you may remember a while back, Eric Swope, the previous industrial pretreatment coordinator, did the song and the video. He even did it at his retirement ceremony here in front of council. So we have pushed those messages out there. Especially when we have a blockage in an area, Zach Adams, our industrial pretreatment coordinator, will work with those folks in that area to try to get out some information. But we do a lot of education.
Well, I knew you did way back with Eric, but that was quite a while ago, and it seems like there's been a significant increase in usage of those wipes, and it doesn't even say on the packaging, do not dispose.
So,
but-
Mr. Chair, sorry, Rebecca, go ahead.
I just want to mention that we have put it as an insert in the utility bills. So everybody who pays the bill has seen it, hopefully.
Also, Mr. Chair, if I may, just to tune up Aaron's answer a little bit, you specifically asked about Martel Court and do we still have the problem there? And Aaron was correct. We sort of solved the problem at Martel Court with the screening equipment that we put in. But I think Christian would agree that that problem still exists at the city's other pump stations. Notably, Blackbrook Pump Station is having a pretty significant problem with wipes at that facility, where they're out there a few times a week.
Yeah, we check that station every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday to assure that it continues to operate as it should. And just in reference to what the screening system has done at Martel Court, every 2 weeks, we have a 4-yard dumpster removed. So we're removing roughly 8 yards of material per month from the wastewater stream.
So maybe we should look at having that type of system for the others.
That's what we're hoping the design will look like moving forward with the Blackbrook station.
So it's also a problem for building owners that they're seeing it too. They may get all the way through and off to those guys, but in many cases, when they have a clog in the building and the plumber shows up, he goes, "You shouldn't have done this."
We actually hope that it's a problem for the building owners,
Right,
because
right.
if it's not, it
Exactly.
becomes a problem for us.
I'll tell Mitch that. All right. Thank you, folks.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I know that was a lot and a lot of projects, but thank you, appreciate it.
Well done.
All right, and to bring us home tonight, Jim Mountford's going to join us and talk about the fleet.
This is fleet. Equipment fund. James, I promise next year you will not be the last one.
Good evening, Chairman, councilors, managers. My name is Jim Mountford. I'm the Assistant Public Works Director and the Fleet Manager. So I'm here to talk about the CIP for the Equipment Fund and other things. The CIP for the Equipment Fund is a program that we use from year to year that replaces as-needed equipment for the city of Keene. Everything that you've heard tonight, all these people out here that are doing all these projects and jobs and paving and plowing and septic sewers and all that other stuff, all that stuff's provided by Fleet Services. It's also worked on by 4 individuals, one newly appointed shop foreman, hopefully soon to acquire a new parts person, and which is the admin coordinator. As I got promoted, I left the building. Now I oversee the bigger end of it, which is the CIP, and, making sure that the organization still runs as it has, which has been my tenure now for almost 16 years. The staff there is a very, very smart group of people. We always try the very hardest to save as much money as possible for the city of Keene. Our program for buying such equipment is either demo, so we buy stuff at a discounted rate, usually less than state contract or government contract. We bought some used equipment over the years, which has worked out perfect. Matter of fact, the sidewalk paver and the drag box are both used pieces of equipment that we've acquired over the last couple of years. We paid short money for those items, which in turn down the road will be asking for money to replace those. That was both of those purchases were a joint effort between Highway and Fleet. There was a few individuals that worked and they'd found those items on Facebook Marketplace. So we sent people out to see how they were as far as their condition was, and then we brought them in. We did some work to those items, and we put them out on the street, and you folks have seen what they've done in the last couple of years with the skilled people that we have. So the monies that we're asking for is the monies that we ask for every year to keep the fleet, as modern as possible, as effective as possible. We don't try to get anything that we don't need, obviously. A lot of the equipment that we have is 20 years in age, so we keep it as long as we possibly can. And to keep that up, requires a little bit of effort. So with that, any questions on why or how or when we replace these items, we're open.
I had the opportunity to see the truck that your crew actually created in order to be able to do photography through the pipes. And it was really impressive to see the work that your fellows had thought through and actually put into place and manufactured, and I was really impressed.
That vehicle was scheduled to be replaced about 6 years ago. Because that vehicle's made out of aluminum, it didn't need to be replaced. The drivetrain has been well-maintained by staff at Fleet Services. A number of years ago, there was monies that were, the Water Sewer Division was able to get, and we ended up putting a camera system inside of that old truck. And that truck is still maintained, every day. That truck, when they need it, they use it. Inside of that truck is a working office. So it's really a neat situation to be able to have something that nice for the city of Keene that we're able to keep on the road. Someday that truck will need to be replaced, but that'll be another conversation. Next, we're looking for, some funding for building upgrades, and that'll be engineering and hopefully building upgrade in 28 and 29. The Fleet Services building hasn't had any additions or any real upgrades other than lights and a couple of doors since it got there, I believe it was 2003, year before I actually came to work for the city. So we're looking for some funds to actually increase the size of the building. We're looking at another 20 feet across the front of the building, some better doors, wider. As the fire apparatus in the city gets bigger and longer, we could use the space in the building roughly in that big bay. Once the tower is in there or the ladder, there is literally inches between the heating unit and the ceiling and the tower when you put it up, so you can get the cab open to access the drivetrain and the power unit, which is the engine for these apparatus. During such time period, we have to shut the heat off because the heat is right there at the tip of the tower or the ladder. So staff works on these vehicles, sometimes when it is cold, because we try to schedule these units to come in when the weather isn't quite that way. That's why we've been doing it for so many years. But there'll be a time that we won't be able to do that. And, we'd like to keep our help around for a number of years. So maybe we can make some improvements upon the structure.
Just to expand on this one a little bit, 2023, Duncan and Jim worked with a company called RTA. They came in and they did a kind of a full assessment of our fleet operations and offered a number of recommendations. Their recommendation with respect to the facility itself was essentially that we required about twice the size of the facility as we currently have. We could not actually implement their recommendations with the current building without demolishing it and starting from scratch. I don't think that's a reasonable ask. So what we're proposing here is a fairly modest upgrade or enlargement of the facility, but it's what we can do while working with the existing building facility and not throwing away what we have today. So it's not an ideal, perfect solution, but I think it's a reasonable compromise between meeting their needs and being respectful of our limited resources.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
You must do a really good job keeping up with this equipment, because I was going through the ages, and there's even a piece 1982, and then there's a lot of equipment from the 1990s. I mean, that's a testament to how well you must take care
Yeah,
of
I
the
mean, some of that
equipment.
equipment isn't used, every month or every day. The reason that some of that equipment sticks around for so long is that we have rebuilt some of that equipment. There's a couple trailers in there that are from the 80s. So the staff is, they're smart enough and capable enough that we've structurally rebuilt some of those items. And, as a whole, the city's lucky to have personnel like that so that we can keep things down in cost and, run them as long as we possibly can, hopefully. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, James.
You're welcome.
Job well done, as usual. Mr. Director and everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We have a second generation of city employees back in the room there. His knowledge and
Can you turn on your microphone, please?
has really contributed to the success of all these programs.
Carter.
Thanks to all the members of the committee, counselors who came,
And staff.
staff, of course, right from the get-go, have been the pilot behind this whole program. There'll be a public hearing. Well, we'll look it over again, just the finance committee, but public hearing and the city council will pass this in whole, I hope, in the very near future. Thank you. Thanks. We're adjourned. Gotta go to bed, I'm tired.